take their seats. Thank you very much. And we can begin our council meeting. I know. Good evening. Welcome to the January 21st City Council meeting. As a reminder, we have Spanish interpretation services available in person and via Zoom. On Point Language Solutions is in the back left corner if anyone needs assistance with interpretation services. So please head over there and they'll get you set up with a headset if you need interpretation services. Victor or Nicholas will now provide information on how to receive interpretation services if you are in need of them.
Check.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm Victor's twin brother. Yes, hello. Si necesita interpretación, por favor, aquí tenemos los aparatitos, los audífonos, aquí en el booth de On Point Soluciones de Lenguaje. Soy Ron Obregón, su servidor. Gracias.
Thank you, Nicholas. Can we have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Penrose?
Here.
Councilmember Nagengast?
Here.
Councilmember Johnson?
Here.
Vice Mayor Reddick?
Here.
Mayor Brownstone?
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. We will now stand for the pledge. Thank you. Can we have an approval of the agenda motion?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those against, say nay. So we're going to begin this evening with proclamations and presentations, and we have a special proclamation presentation regarding Tom Menitis and recognition of him. Just a moment. Okay. Can I start there then?
Yeah.
I think you can. Oh, I'm waiting for this. Okay. We're just bringing up our large monitor here for everyone to see.
We're going to wait to begin until we have the PCTV feed.
The PCT feed is what allows the public to participate and watch this meeting. We're good to go, and we're going to begin with an opening statement by Vice Mayor Ruddick.
So tonight we're going to honor Half Moon Bay and Coastside legend, Tom the Greek Menitis, who passed away last week. Tom the Greek Menitis was born in Chicago, Illinois on April 20th, 1940, and moved to California with his family at age 11. He began working with his father, John Menitis Sr., selling produce out of a truck at a young age. By 16, Tom worked in local produce departments, including Broadway Market and QFI Market. At 20, he joined the Army Infantry before transferring to the Army National Guard, continuing his career in produce alongside his service. On July 7th, 1963, Tom married June, and the following year they opened Tom and Pete's Produce in Half Moon Bay, a retail and wholesale business specializing in fruits, vegetables, pumpkins, and Christmas trees. And you can see a little display out in the lobby showing the Christmas trees and the pumpkins to honor Tom this evening. His father, John Sr., and brother Pete joined the business in 1965. Over the years, Tom built a legacy of generosity, donating pumpkins and Christmas trees to schools and community organizations and hosting countless school field trips. From 1974 to 1976, Tom and his father won the first 3 years of the World Championship Pumpkin Weigh-Off in Half Moon Bay. Tom and June welcomed their daughter Tina in 1966 and their son John in 1968. Both children, as well as his granddaughters Athena and Tiana, followed in his footsteps, working at Tom and Pete's Produce from a young age. The family-run business has flourished under Tom's dedication and hard work. Tom was deeply honored to receive the Farmer of the Year award at the Melmello Farm Day on March 31st, 2023, recognizing his lifetime of contributions to agriculture and his community. On January 14th, 2025, Tom passed away after a courageous battle with cancer. He was a devoted family man, a beloved community figure, and to give the shirt off his back kind of guy who helped countless people. He enjoyed working and visiting with his customers and friends, loved gambling at the casino, and playing poker with his friends, and had a passion for classic cars. Tom's legacy of love, hard work, and generosity will live on through his family and the lives he touched. I just want to say that for all the newcomers we've had here in the last 2 or 3 decades, Half Moon Bay has lovingly been able to maintain a sense of place. And that place was built by many families long ago and recently, and I think we owe a lot of respect to them for building the community that we love so much. So we want to welcome the new and welcome visitors, but we also want to respect the community and the people who built Half Moon Bay to make the place it is. And Tom played a really big role in that, Tom and his family. So thank you, Tom, and thank you, Tom's family. And we're open to hearing from folks tonight if they want to make comments about Tom.
We'll start with a memorial recognition from Cameron Palmer.
Alrighty. First of all, I want to thank the city of Half Moon Bay. I called Deborah Ruddick the other night, and I said, we got to make something happen. And we did. And between Matthew and all the city staffs helping set everything up, thank you so much. This means a lot to his family and friends. Tom Monitis, also known as the Greek of Main Street. He's a Coastside legend, probably the nicest man I've ever met, an incredible husband to June, father to Tina and Johnny, grandpa to his grandkids Athena and Tiana. He was an employer to hundreds and hundreds of people over the years, an incredible friend to thousands and thousands of people, and I consider myself lucky enough to be one of his friends. Tom truly was larger than life. He will be missed by all of us. And by the way, he was one hell of a businessman, but he was even a better poker player. I've been on the losing end of some of those. But may God bless you, Tom Monitis, and your family that is here today. And I hope you enjoy the great produce stand up in the sky. Thank you.
Thank you, Cameron. Next, we have Supervisor Ray Mueller from our Board of Supervisors to recognize and make a presentation.
Well, I wanted to come tonight on behalf of the County of San Mateo to say that we mourn this loss with you, but we also celebrate Tom's life with you. On January 28th at the Board of Supervisors meeting, we'll be honoring and celebrating Tom's life as a county. And tonight I brought a in memoriam certificate from the County of San Mateo to go ahead and present to June. So thank you for this, for the time to address you.
Thank you.
I don't think we have any speakers online.
Okay.
Carrie Burke, and I just want to express my gratitude for Tom Monitis and his entire family that are such a part of the fabric of our community. You know, Tom was a character larger than life and really added so much zest and interesting energy to our community. I hope it sets a fine example for others and what they can do and how they can make a life and contribute to our town. And my heart goes out to June and her family. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for everyone here who has come this evening to honor Tom's memory and to be here for his family as well. Thank you. Our next presentation is on the HIP housing calendar. Is that correct? Okay. Thanks.
Good evening, Council. Napalo Gomez, proud board member, HIP Housing, and I've got some calendars there for staff and for the council, and I'm here representing HIP Housing, so thank you for allowing me to be here. Just got some opening remarks, and then I'll let you get back to the agenda. So for those of you that aren't aware of HIP Housing, since 1972, HIP Housing has been helping low-income residents of San Mateo County find and maintain affordable housing. We're listed in your housing elements, all 21 here in Half Moon Bay. And over the last year, we have worked with 3,900 individuals and provided housing to over 750 low-income households in San Mateo County. Specifically here in Half Moon Bay, over the last fiscal year, we served 65 residents here in Half Moon Bay. 15 individuals also applied for the home sharing program, and 15 individuals through our new housing readiness program. We really thank you for the ongoing support, and we look forward to partnering further with you. One of the fun activities that we have every year is that kindergartners through 5th grade contribute to the art in here. Specifically, I like the December photo drawing here that is Home Sweet Home, and I encourage folks to check out the art. And for those with young ones, whether those are your own children or grandchildren or so forth, it's a great activity to encourage kids to contribute. We had 500 calendar entries across the county. We selected 13 winners, and so 12 for each month, and then one is for the cover. So, yeah. And if anybody has any questions about HIP housing, we have staff ready, available to answer questions and support. We're really trying to do good work here across the county to help improve the situation for access to affordable housing. That's it.
Just for those who might not be familiar with HIP housing in the audience, if you could just spend a few moments telling us.
Yeah, definitely. So founded in 1972, we have several different programs to help folks access affordable housing. We have properties that we also manage that are affordable housing across the county. If folks are interested, please check out hiphousing.org, or you can talk to me during the break. Happy to help out.
Great. Thanks for coming this evening, and thank you for the calendars. Appreciate
Absolutely.
it.
Thank you for having me.
All right. Take care. Next, we will have a Mid-Coast Community Council update from Scott.
I'm Scott Bollinger, and thank you again for having me, as always. I have 3 points that I'd like to review with you real quick. Over the past couple years, we've compiled evidence regarding issues of stormwater runoff and flooding in the Mid-Coast, and have prepared a report describing the issues. At our last meeting, we met with Supervisor Mueller, and we discussed the report. Supervisor Mueller is guiding us with what would be the next steps through the county to help mitigate the issues of stormwater runoff. The second issue is, at our last meeting, we swore in 3 new members to the council. They are Connie Santini, Kevin Snezinski, and Chris Rogers. The last point I'd like to bring up is that this weekend we are having our retreat. And this is the event where we plan for our priorities for the upcoming year. If anybody has any suggestions for what we should be reviewing and looking at in the next year, please let us know. The best way to contact us is come to a meeting or Zoom into one of our meetings on Wednesdays, or go to Mid-Coast Community Council and you'll see how you can contact us with any suggestions. Thank you.
Thank you, Scott. Any questions from council? For Scott? Great. Thanks again, Scott. Thanks for coming. Let's see. Next, we will have a report out from recent closed session meeting.
Thank you, Mayor, Council, and Community. The Council did meet in closed session prior to tonight's regular meeting to discuss 3 items. The first item was a conference with real property negotiators regarding the potential sale of a portion of the property of 880 Stone Pine. Nothing to report out, but I will note that staff is prepared to bring forward a proposed purchase and sale agreement to the next regular meeting of the Council on, I believe that's February 4th. The second item was conference with real property negotiators regarding the property 555 Kelly Avenue to discuss price in terms of a potential lease agreement. Again, nothing to report out, but I did want to note that the council has reconstituted the ad hoc council subcommittee, which was previously council members Penrose and Vice Mayor Ruddick. That ad hoc subcommittee is now comprised of Mayor Brownstone and Councilmember Penrose. Nothing further on that item. And then finally, the council discussed, the third item was regarding existing litigation, the case of Vidovich versus City of Half Moon Bay. Nothing to report out. Thank you.
Thank you, Catherine. Appreciate that. Our next item on the agenda is our city manager's update to council.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We have two updates tonight. Both will be given by Julissa Acosta from our city manager's office.
Good evening, council, mayor, and community members. I am here to invite the community to attend Mac Dutra Plaza on Thursday, January 23rd, 2025. It will be the second anniversary of the mass shooting that took the lives of the 7 farm workers 2 years ago. And we invite everybody to come in and drop off items, flowers, ribbons, and pay their respect to the victims. We won't be having a formal ceremony, but we will be having flowers and a banner there for anybody to come and display their affection. Also, at the park, I will be hosting 2 pop-up opportunities for the community to provide their feedback on the Farm Worker Memorial Garden. We were instructed by council that there's a need to establish a permanent memorial in our community. And with the help of the Farm Worker Memorial Remembrance and Advisory Committee, sorry, that's a mouthful, we've put together, we released an RFQ last year. We received 9 applications. And out of those 9 applications, the committee selected the top 3 firms that they felt understood the charge. And they presented their proposals last December. And we will be displaying those to the community to gather their feedback. And that is just one little step. We will be coming back to council, to the rest of the commissions over the next month or 2 to collect feedback and gather input and ultimately present here at City Council for a final decision. You can go to the next page. And this is just a brief preview of the 3 proposals. This was done by Calendar and Associates. Next one. This is by Gordon Huther and Associates. And this is by Studio Folia. And again, we'll be coming back with the formal presentations to everybody and recommendations from the committee. But this is just an informal process in light of the Remembrance Day. We wanted to invite the community and welcome their feedback as well. Next slide. And we will be having the pop-ups at between 9:30 a.m., 10:30 a.m., and then another session in the afternoon between 3 and 4. And again, folks are invited to come in and share their thoughts on the proposals. And the next slide, I'm happy to share for the 3rd year in a row, we're hosting the Mexican Consulate here at Tedaka Community Center. It'll be this Saturday, January 25th, all day. They usually provide services to Mexican nationals who are looking for passports or birth certificates, voting registration cards, and the services are free. Appointments will open this Thursday. I encourage folks to call throughout the day because they open at random times and we don't have a way of knowing when they open. We'll be here in support with some of our nonprofits partners as well. And the phone number folks can make their appointments is 424-309-0009, and that works via phone or via WhatsApp. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Julissa. Any questions from council? No? Okay, good. Oops. Oh, I was wondering. I almost thought there wasn't any more. Okay, next we have public forum. Each person will get 3 minutes to speak. The way public forum works, again, for anybody new to city council meeting, is people can participate both in the room and virtually as well. And public forum is to talk about anything you want that's not on the agenda. If an item is on the agenda, then you wait till that agenda item comes up and we have a period where you can comment specifically on the agendized items. So keep that in mind. This is not a time to bring up any comments about something that is only a time to bring up something that is not on the agenda. Okay, so with that, first person is Chloe Standes, if I'm hopefully pronouncing correctly. Okay.
Hello, City Council. I'm Chloe Standes, an Eagle Scout candidate, and I've lived on the coast for the last 17 years. I'm also a member of the Bike and Pedestrian Advisory Committee, but I'm speaking tonight on my own behalf to give an update on my Eagle Scout project involving the placement of bonfire pits on Poplar Beach. The previous City Council approved my 2-week pilot bonfire pit program for the month of December. Due to unforeseen circumstances that include adverse weather and technical designs that failed during pouring, we're coming back with a resolution that gives us a little bit more time to run the pilot program. This conforms to the approval we've already received from the Coastal Commission. This afternoon, I was at the concrete plant in town where we completed the 4th and final bonfire pit. We've built 4 different pit designs that are all designed to minimize sparks and reduce smoke, experimenting with size, design, and materials to gather feedback on an ideal form. My program will provide space for legal beach bonfires in Half Moon Bay for the first time since 1991. The goal of this project is to gather feedback on the success of contained bonfire pits. Hopefully, I will be able to demonstrate that contained fire pits owned by the city will encourage more responsible behavior, reduce hazards from hot coals, better protect wildlife habitat, and reduce litter on beaches. It will also give teenagers a place to congregate and do what we've always done, gather by the fire and build community. I commit that on my honor, I will do my best to manage this program and report back to you my findings and recommendations on a long-term program, which would include a plan for a coastal development permit. I also want to acknowledge that asking for approval for city-sanctioned fire pits comes at an unfortunate time, given what's happening in Los Angeles right now. As someone who's personally experienced overwhelming loss as a result of wildfires burning down my grandfather's home in the Pacific Palisades, I completely agree that anything related to fire should not be treated lightly. Fire needs to be managed. Currently, we have illegal bonfires happening on city beaches, including Poplar Beach, and nothing that we've done so far has stopped them. Overregulation has only made the issue worse. Out-of-control bonfires are more dangerous and have a higher fire risk than safe, enclosed bonfires in fireproof concrete pits. I ask you to approve this project and let me set into motion a safer, interactive solution to the bonfire issues in Half Moon Bay. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Robert Campos. Is Robert Campos? Oh, there he is. Thanks. Let's see you back there.
Good evening. My name is Robert Campos. I'm a resident here in Half Moon Bay, and I own a duplex here in town. I'm here to express my disagreement with the rental property registration ordinance. I purchased my duplex in 2013 as this was the only home I could afford. I currently live in the same duplex and I make no profit off of it. I bought this property well before the thought of any ordinance was ever discussed. I do not understand how the city council could just vote for this ordinance without getting a vote from the people. I know firsthand that there are families that own houses here in town who sublease a single room for entire families and the families who can't afford to live on their own. And these homes are considered single-family dwellings. However, the homeowners are not being asked to pay for the fee of the ordinance due to the fact that the home is a single-family dwelling and not a rental property. And I later found that if the city just does not know about these types of homes, there's really nothing they could do. When I learned of this ordinance, I called City Hall today to have questions, as I had questions. I was told that I had to pay for this fee for the ordinance. And as far as my concern on the homeowner subleasing a room to their house, I was told that I had to report them. Additionally, I was told that if I failed to pay the ordinance fee, a lien on my home could be the end result. A lien. I do not understand how the city could put a threat of a lien on my home as punishment for a law I never had a say in. In closing, I feel that this is a violation of my Fourth Amendment right. Per the Fourth Amendment, it states, the right of the people to be secure in their persons, houses, papers, and effects against unreasonable searches and seizures shall not be violated, and no warrant shall issue, but upon probable cause, supported by the oath of or affirmation, and particularly describing the place to be searched and the person or things to be seized. I should not have to disclose who I rent to and for how much. That is my constitutional right to privacy. I never would have purchased this property if I would have known something like this would have happened. I'm asking for the City Council to end this ordinance on behalf of the citizens of Half Moon Bay. Thank you.
Thank you, Robert. Our next speaker is Brad Johnson.
Hi, my name's Brad Johnson. It doesn't really make any difference, but I'm a veteran, and I've spent part of my life looking out for people. And here I just love Half Moon Bay, but in the course of my being here, I've had 3 different people make false reports to the police, and the police know for a fact that they are false statements, and nobody's doing anything about it. I put in some FOIA requests, and now my FOIA requests are being ignored. I basically have no contact in the last month. And because there's been some false reports filed by the police, they're risking all the cases that they've ever been involved with in San Mateo. If a person is proven to have made false statements, including the police, all the cases they've ever been involved with can be looked at. So I'm just wondering, I'm just hoping, please, Maggie knows a fair amount about this case. I need to have action done on this because it's just not right. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Brad. Our next speaker is Joaquin Jimenez.
Good evening.
Evening.
It's good to be back. My name is Joaquin Jimenez, and I just want to, first of all, my condolences to the Menaides family, for the passing of Tom. I only had one conversation with Tom. That was it, and that was when he gave me my condolences on my son passing. And before that, we never really crossed word at all. I knew who he was. Again, a well-recognized person in Half Moon Bay who helped a lot of people in the community, who hired a lot of the local communities, including people from a homeless population. The other thing is, I want to say that I'm looking forward to working with you. I know we have a lot of things to do. Mayor, congratulations, being our new mayor. Patrick and Paul, congratulations on your election. Looking forward to a lot of changes. We have a lot of work to do, including, the affordable housing that we have been needing here in our community. The A80 Stone Pine project is, looking pretty good. And also the other project, 555 Kelly. I'm not going to talk about it. It's on the agenda. But we have, several things that we have to do. Also, the recognition of the farm workers. January 23rd, on Thursday. I do plan to be there. So we have a lot of things. Also, want to mention a lot of what's going on in our community about the fear of the ICE, coming into our community about doing the raids. And I know there are several organizations here on the coast, in Pescadero, Half Moon Bay, that are working together to do presentations about knowing your rights. The rights that we all have. You don't have to be a U.S. citizen, to be recognized under the rights of the Constitution. So they do have rights. And now many of us are actually passing out red cards that we call. On the red cards has the information about what to do in case you are detained by an officer. Main thing is to stay quiet, don't answer any questions. If you are detained and taken to a center, that means, you stay quiet and you ask for your attorney and don't sign any paperwork. Really basic information, for our community, especially, the farm worker community or essential workers who are being affected, by the rates. We already know in Kern County, I believe it is, Fresno, Bakersfield area, Central Valley. So yes, looking forward to doing a lot of work and continuing the work that we started. Thank you.
Thank you, Joaquin. Our next speaker is Cesar Sanchez.
Good evening. My name is Cesar Sanchez. I've lived here for 27 beautiful years, a little over a quarter of a century. And I promised that I was going to be here on behalf of my community. And I'm not just talking about Latinos. I'm going to just watch that time too so that I know how much time I have. I would love to talk more with you guys, but I think it's time to really take actions because it's kind of stupid, I'm sorry to use this word, of how much time is taken to talk about low-income houses. I'm trying to develop low-income houses, but I'm constantly getting harassed by the city council, not city council, the building department. I go to the water department, and I get harassed there also. There is a code section that I want you guys, if you could please write it down. This is very important for ADU and multipurpose housing. Section code 6585.2. It says specifically, low affordable income houses has the right of way, and no water department and building department should stop these houses to be built. It's a shame to hear people saying here that they've been working for low-income houses. 555 Kelly, it's been my nightmare. I keep hearing about it. It's time to really take action, guys. I'm a single person. I house already over 37 families. I'm not here to fight for me. I'm here to ask your help to really do something together. If you would like me to give you my property so that we do all low-income houses, I will do it. Whatever it takes. Teachers complain to me about not being able to afford living here anymore. Farm workers, my guys that work in construction and my fellow contractors, they keep leaving the city because they can't afford to live here anymore. I've been building in the Central Valley like crazy because I'm trying to sell properties there for the guys, and I said, you can live here for a while you get your life together there. It's crazy. I'm doing way more than the city has ever done. You keep talking and talking and talking, and you don't get anything done. I've known Mrs. Penrose, with all respect, for years. I love her, and a lot of you may know me, but you're going to get to know me more now because I'm tired and I'm fed up with you guys of not doing anything. One mayor goes, one mayor comes, one mayor goes, one mayor comes, and nobody does anything anymore. Remember that you're sitting there to help and to work for our community. And if you want me to bring a lot of people to be here with me, I will do that. Whatever I need to do, I will do it. But I'm fed up with all these issues. The city workers, they need to know what they're doing. You guys need to work with us. I'm trying to build 6 properties right now with low-income houses. There is a teacher that's suffering the consequence of have to leave in the area because her mom is trying to build a house for her in the backyard, but she can't because now we have to get Measure D, and we have to buy more water on the black market. Everybody knows that. That's not okay. This code, please search it and please help us. We really need affordable entry-level housing for rental. I'm here to help you guys too. And I hope we work together, but we need to do it ASAP. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Cesar. Our next speaker is Harvey Rarbach.
Good evening, Council. It's nice to be back. 8 years ago, this hall was completely full with people who were totally worried about what was going to happen with the incoming Trump administration. I'm a little disappointed to see it's not full today because the threat is absolutely more genuine as to what's going to happen with the immigrant community. And I'm very worried about what Half Moon Bay is going to do. 8 years ago, it was decided not to declare the city a sanctuary city. It was said to be just performative. It wouldn't really make any difference. I beg to differ. I think that it would send a message to our immigrant community, both documented and undocumented, that we really care about their rights and that we will do everything we can legally to make sure that their rights are respected. As Joaquin was saying, one of the things we can do is hand out red cards that tell immigrants and other people what their rights are. You can also call 833-NO-MIGRA for the rapid response team that the county has organizing. If you see ICE here, if you see any harassment or any illegal activities about immigration, you should call that number. And the county has training available for people to deal with immigrant issues. They have a place where you can prepare for your families to deal with possible deportation. I think the council, the city, should do everything they can to work with and encourage the immigrant community to stay safe and not be harassed. There's another group of people that I'm also worried about, and that's the LGBTQ plus community. The Trump administration has already made some inroads about how to harass transsexual individuals. We have a LGBTQ community center. I think we should encourage the rights of our citizens, whatever their sexual persuasion. So these are a couple of things that really concern me that we must do to protect our community. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Harvey. Our next speaker is Monica Berlin.
Hello, my name is Monica Berlin, and I just want to say I've lived on the coast since 1978, and I remember Tom Manitis, the Tom Manitis family, just in memory of Tom Manitis. God bless you, Tom. I know you're in heaven looking down on us right now, and we will meet again at the resurrection of Jesus, our Lord. I just remember going with my dad down to the Tom and Pete's produce farm when I was 4 years old and meeting Tom Manitis, and he handed me a pumpkin, and I'll just never forget that. He was super nice, and he just made me feel really good about Half Moon Bay. And I just am here because, like I've said, I've lived here for 45 years, and I've seen a lot of changes in town, specifically with these concrete projects that are invasive along Pilarcitos Creek, which is a wildlife habitat. And I noticed a lot of birds when I was down there taking a video yesterday that were perched on, these concrete whatever, you have a fence down there, the birds were literally perched on the fence instead of the trees, and I just want to know what your timeline is to finish the construction down there, wrap it up, and return the parking and clean it up. I just don't think it was an appropriate place to build an amphitheater that has that much concrete and rebar, like a huge construction. And when I just saw the pictures, I'm sorry, yeah, there were some farm workers that were, there was a tragedy that happened here 2 years ago. It seems to have been very politicized, and I don't think it's appropriate to build a memorial at all. And to see those concrete drawings to construct a huge memorial like that is inappropriate for the character and the town of Half Moon Bay. I don't agree with that, and I just wanted to say that I know that the city council here tried to force a vaccination policy on city employees, and you were working on how you were going to be able to force employees in Half Moon Bay to become vaccinated, and we now know that those vaccine shots are toxic, and I actually know people who've had health problems. I know somebody who suffered a stroke who had no problems before, and so I think that's evil. And that policy is going to come full circle with Donald Trump, who is now our president and commander-in-chief, thank God. And anybody who's afraid of ICE raids, we cannot have a country that has a sanctuary city where you can say illegal immigrants come here and you commit crimes here, we're not going to prosecute you. We're only prosecuting citizens. And that is not a kind of country that we're going to have. So Donald Trump is absolutely deporting all criminal aliens, and that is the law. And we're going to have a lawful country. And the only reason why things are not affordable around here is because the government's spending all our money and creating inflation. And I want to see what your budget was in 1990 versus today, 2024. I want to put them side by side. So I'm going to request copies of that from you. And I also want to know who audited the city budget, when the last time the city budget was audited, and I want to receive a copy of that also. And I want to know why you thought it was fiscally feasible to install a bike trail on the east side of Highway 1 when there's already a trail on the west side. And
Monica,
No,
I'm sorry, your time is up. Thank you. I'm sorry.
Another person went over.
No, Monica, we've let you go over. Your
Okay,
time's
well,
up.
I'm going to get that information, and I'm going to bring Elon Musk, Department of Government Efficiency, down here, and we're going to figure this out, because there's way too much bureaucracy here. Absolutely. You want to now know
Thank you,
who's
Monica.
living in people's homes? No, you guys.
Thank you. All righty. We have two speakers. We have two remote speakers. First person looks like Crystalline from Coastside Chamber.
Crystalline.
Hi there. Thank you for having me on a public comment coming from the Zoom. And I just wanted to put out there that although a little late, we will be having our State of the Coastside on February 18th, hopefully in the afternoon as a lunch. And we are going to have 10 agencies, including our wonderful city, do short presentations for the community. And then we will have it professionally recorded and be able to put online after. So if anybody wants more information on the State of the Coastside annual address as the details come together, please visit our website, coastside365.com, and sign up for our Monday event emails where all the information will be. Thank you. Can't wait for it.
Thank you, Crystalline. And I think that's it for our public forum is now closed. would like a motion on the consent calendar. There's one item. We're going to pull item 1D, D as in David. Did anyone else on council want to pull a particular item on consent? Or?
The Mayor, I would like to. 1B, 1C, and 1E.
Okay. Can I have a motion to approve the rest of the consent calendar?
I move that we, 1A, waive reading of resolutions and ordinances. You're pulling B, C, and E?
You're right. D, I think D was also being pulled. D, and so it'd
Yeah, I
be
know, but
B, C,
you
D, and E.
did B, C, and E.
Yeah.
Okay.
B, C, and E, and D.
Okay, that we accept updated Emergency Services Council Joint Powers Agreement, that we accept Smithfield Park Improvement and Wave Crest Water Main Projects, Amendment Number 3 to Professional Services Agreement with SWCA for additional services.
I second.
Let's take a roll call on this, or all in favor? No, just all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All against? Motion passed. So we'll now take up item 1B, pulled by Pat. Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, 1B, yeah. Yeah, I do that. And then
Okay, yeah.
I'll be quick. It's just.
I'll just go in orders.
Yep.
We'll start with 1B.
1B, and just new to the council, and I appreciate council's patience with me in the community, but some of these expenses is something I just want to clarify and make sure I understand, make sure community understands some of these numbers. And I'm in no particular order. I did talk some with the staff, but I want to go back and as quickly as I can go over some of these. I know we have a full agenda tonight. So first item I'd like to go over is there were several planning-related consultants being paid. That number, if I added it up, came almost to $26,000. And I do know applicants do have to put deposits into the, as part of the application process, that the city goes ahead and hires a consultant. But I'm just curious of this 26,000, if there was a number, how much it was supplementing staff versus how much gets reimbursed back or as part of the actual applicant costs as part of doing business in the city.
Sure. Thank you for giving us a chance to look into this before the meeting as well. Of that 26,000, I'll work the other direction. 8,000 of it was to M Group, and that is a consultant that is providing support and expertise related to the development and hopefully the ultimate passing of the housing element, which is a state-required document. That is paid for through the general fund and is in addition to our regular staffing. The rest of it is, as you mentioned earlier, it's support for planning-related projects that are paid for by fees from applicants. So they don't come at a direct cost to the city, but instead are passed through. In some cases, we utilize the consultant services because they have specialized expertise that we don't have in-house. In other cases, for instance, Good City Company is on the list here. They provide very low-level planning reviews of simple permits. And what that allows us to do is, again, it's paid for by the permit plan, the permit costs. And it frees up our staff, which is a very small team, to focus on the larger, longer-term permits that require coordination with the permittee and the community and higher-level work. And so it frees them up to do that by having this third party do the lower-level, more ministerial-type approvals.
Thank you. That helps. And then as long as we're talking about planning, I know it's been a long break from December to January, but wanting to know, we had a change. We have a new planning or community development director, but we also had an interim in place. We had our previous director. I just quick status of those and, where are we or?
Sure. And without getting into too much detail, because there are personnel issues, Jill Ekus, who was our longtime community development director and well-liked in the community and really gave a lot to the community, had to step away from that role early last year due to some personal needs. She is now officially retired and will no longer be working with the city. After she stepped down, we hired Steve McCarris as our interim community development director while we did our formal search for a permanent solution. Steve is a retired community development director and city manager, and he was able to provide those interim services for us. His contract goes through the end of this month. He hasn't worked with us this year because we have the full-time CDD director hired, but he will be working with us next week under that contract just to finish up the Hyatt Appeal project, which will be heard hopefully next Thursday night, the 30th. And she just walked in the room, but take a moment to recognize Leslie Lako, our new permanent community development director. She comes to us by way most recently of Marin County, but we feel extremely blessed to have her here. She comes with a great amount of experience that is helpful for the role, but really, really specific to the values of our community. And I've just been really impressed with the way she's hit the ground running and already exercised a lot of great leadership here. So another great find for us. And so going forward, she is our permanent community development director. Excellent. And we hope to have her here for a very long time. Okay. No pressure.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thanks.
Matthew, and welcome, Leslie. And Pedal for a Purpose. Like I said, I'm going to try to go through these, but I just noticed it's about $46,000, almost $47,000. What were those?
Yeah, and I may ask Maggie to step in because she managed that program. But the Pedal for the Purpose program is a really cool grant program through CCAG that provided funding to help, and correct me if I'm wrong, farm workers and other
Farm workers,
teachers and hospitality workers who live in Half Moon Bay or work in Half Moon Bay and live within proximity of Half Moon Bay to acquire e-bikes to get to and from work, as opposed to driving or taking other vehicles to work. Through that program, we contracted with Straight Wheel Cycling and Bike Works, two local businesses who, when a person is selected for the program, goes in and is able to be fitted for a bike that fits their needs, and they get it free of cost. It benefits our local business. The grant is already wrapped up. There are no more available slots for this, but those that were selected are still going through the process of acquiring their bikes, and then the shops are reimbursed for those bikes, and that's what you're seeing on the warrants list today.
So that's just it's a grant. It's not.
It's a total pass-through. Some of Maggie's time has gone into that, but otherwise it's paid through, I believe, by a transportation tax through CCAG. Okay. Measure M and W.
Can I add something to that? It's a special needs class that my daughter goes to. Mary got one of those bikes, and she loves the bikes. So I just want to do some feedback. And I did see that, Paul, and I lost my sheet between that room and this room. But that was going to be one of my questions. But I also kind of knew, because I did some homework, because I knew that she won that, and then I did my little homework on that. But I was like, wow, where's this money, and are we getting a grant? So that was one of my questions. Thanks, Paul.
Yeah. Really great program, and we're grateful to be selected as a community to do that. I think it really benefits many members of our community.
Then I noticed we have about $18,000 in custodial contracts. That's because we have no custodial staff, is that?
That's correct. I don't know when that change happened. I've been with the city for almost 8 years. We don't fully employ any full-time custodial staff. We have our maintenance staff that do physical maintenance on city properties and public properties, but custodial cleaning of city facilities, including the library, city hall, this center, and other city facilities, are done through a contract, and that's what you're seeing there.
Thank you. And then I noticed $232,000 as to Mercy Housing. Is that the pass-through from county or city or?
That's correct. A couple of years ago, the county committed $1.5 million in ARPA funding that they received from the federal government towards the 555 Kelly farm worker housing project, and we are the pass-through agency for that grant. And so we receive the funding, or we pay out the funding, and then we get reimbursed by the county.
So then, along the pass-through lines, so then there's 23,000 for Renaissance. Job Train had 2 payments, but it was 46,000 in the chamber, 14.5. Are those the pass-through from the county too?
Those are from a separate ARPA grant that we got through the county for the development of the Opportunity Center of the Coast Side, which is located on Main Street, managed by the chamber. And then you mentioned the other nonprofits. There's a third group there, which is the American Energy Society, who is overseeing the new incubator space there as well. All of that is paid for through the grant, which goes through September of this year. So one of our priorities is to find sustainable long-term funding for that facility and those programs.
It'll end in September?
That's correct, end of September of this year.
And then just Abundant Grace, I noticed 2 payments, it totaled about 26,000. Is this the work they do on the streets and the beaches in town?
That is our Coastside Clean Team that is managed by Abundant Grace. It's a program that we've had in place for several years. And in this case, those 2 payments actually represent 4 months of payments.
4 months.
So it does take time for them to process those payments that go to the workers.
Okay.
And from my question to you on the phone this morning, that was one of my questions too, because the Pilocitos Creek needs cleanup, but you said Abundant Grace does not do that. They only do the beaches, correct?
We have an on-call contract when we close encampments where we can get the assistance of Abundant Grace. It's a separate team from their Coastside Clean Team, and they can help with cleanups, but that's only for closed encampments. They don't go in and clean up encampments where people are currently living. I think the encampments you're referring to on Pilocitos Creek are actually on private property, and so we work with the property owner to clean that up.
Are we going to plan on something that in the future, just, we want to take care of the unhoused, but we also want to take care of the riparian habitat that's there?
Yeah, we're working with that particular property owner right now. There's been some delays, some family issues, but yes, we're working with them to get those encampments resolved.
Okay. You good? There. And then there's one more, this dispatch services, it's $199,000. That's separate from the sheriff contract. Even though it's dispatch 911, it's a different service.
That's correct. So the city has an obligation to provide law enforcement and public safety services here in Half Moon Bay. I think most people know the fire district is a separate government entity that serves the entire coast side. We contract with the sheriff's office for law enforcement. 911 dispatch is a separate department of the county. It's called Public Safety Communications, and we contract with them, as do most of the agencies in San Mateo County, to receive and dispatch those 911 calls, and that's a separate contract. That amount that you just referenced, I believe, is a quarterly payment. We pay, I think, $750,000 to $800,000 a year to them for those services.
It's not cheap.
No, it's not.
Okay.
There was one that I saw, I'm going off of memory, there was like CAD training or something like that on that one, on the second page. Could be wrong. It was for CAD training for software, I think it was.
CAD, computer-assisted design, is software that our engineers use, and probably...
We don't own it? We just have to rent it, or we pay for it, or
I would have to look more into that. Oh, Maz can answer that question as our Public Works Director and City Engineer.
Thank you. Great question. Yes, so that it's, like most software, it's a subscription-based software now. In the past, you were able to buy the license and you would have it, but now it's moved to a monthly subscription model. So that's why that charge is there.
And I'll just note, by using the monthly subscription model, it means that we always have the most up-to-date software and all the most up-to-date features that allow us to do our work.
Go off memory again. I think the lights were impressive for December, but they sure are expensive at what, $7,500 or something like that. Is that correct for the Christmas lighting or something like that, or PG&E for the tree lighting?
I'm not sure we associate an exact cost to doing the Christmas tree and lights. I can assure you it's not $7,000.
Some high number.
But we can take a look and see how our PG&E bills fluctuate during the holidays.
I could be wrong, but I remember underlining that one. I was like, wow, it's expensive, but it sure is nice to have the lights.
Well, we can take a look at it and make sure that we're not doing something there that's prohibitive cost-wise.
But I think that's all of their lighting.
I correct myself, that's all of it, Main Street and the whole lighting, of the street lighting and Half Moon Bay. So that's like, but it's pretty expensive, but it's for the city.
Thank you. That concludes my...
Thank you, Paul and Patrick. I move that we accept the warrants list for the month of December 2024.
Second.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those against, motion passed. 1C.
Yes, thank you. And I guess I need to understand, that there's 3 sections, and who the lead is versus maybe who's the alternate, or in some cases, you need both people. Because it seemed like I don't want to overcommit myself and not, not be able to serve how I believe I should on things that I am on, as opposed to trying to stretch myself. So there's some things I noticed for schedule on Wednesdays, it would be difficult for me. And I've been requesting some of the assignments that put me in on Wednesdays that I can't attend to, and that's what I'd be hoping we'd be able to work that out.
Yeah, we can make adjustments as needed. So there's only 5 of us. There's a lot
Understood.
of a lot of coverage, and so yeah, we can take that conversation offline and adjust with anybody here who has issues. And sometimes we swap, and figure out what our time limits are. But there was certain limits for some people, and most of the assignments do involve, your names as alternates. And then what I did was try and take everybody's first choices, get as many of those in as possible. Sometimes 2 people wanted the same thing, so, made my judgment call.
Could you explain what as designated means?
As designated means as needed more often than not. So in other words, there's no
set schedule?
No set schedule ahead of time. And frankly, some of those never get scheduled. But we still have a contact person from the council if they do. So that's what that means.
Great, okay. So the idea of what we have is what we've typically needed in the past. Like there may be a need for a new committee that would come forward by the council, and council would
Yeah, that's possible.
if we need one, okay.
Yeah.
And just we've known in the past that these are typically things that whether we work with staff members or amongst ourselves as council, we just have seen these.
And it allows those groups, if they have a question, to come to that person and maybe bring it up to staff. Do you know what I mean? So you're that person they could contact. Doesn't mean they're going to have a whole meeting or schedule a meeting necessarily, but they know, oh, that's a designated person I can speak with. So.
Well, okay. Well, if I can work with you on some of the.
Yeah, great.
Because I know
Sounds
there's
good.
conflicts I have.
No, great. Let us know, let me know, let staff know.
Okay.
Figure it out.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, could I just make a quick comment on this item? When we originally published the agenda last Friday, there was an attachment that showed the designated assignments. That was updated over the weekend. It was uploaded earlier today. Sometime between when it was uploaded and tested and now, the link is not working. So if somebody is watching from home right now and trying to view that list, it's not accessible right now. We can't fix it during the meeting, so I just want anybody who's watching that's interested in that list, it'll be fixed after the meeting, and tomorrow they can go in and look at it. And we apologize for the technical issue.
Thank you, Matthew. So again, the link to that list of appointments should be available tomorrow. Thank you. Make a motion to accept Mayor Brownstone's list of city council representatives and designated assignments for 2025.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those against? Item 1D, as in David, and this is the permit for the temporary placement of up to 4 fire pits under a pilot project on Poplar Beach. Reason I asked to have that pulled was I did get an email from a constituent, which was already, and this issue of, people, they were concerned about generally fire pits, and of course, with the ongoing media attention to the fires in LA, it's understandable. And their question was, does the city provide insurance and indemnification if there are any problems? And I think, Matthew, you were going to be able to answer that first.
Sure, and John Dowdy, our Assistant City Manager, who's been working closely on this, is also here to answer questions. I think the most straightforward answer is, though this pilot project has been proposed and is being facilitated by a member of our community, Chloe Standes, who spoke earlier tonight, it is considered a city program, and so it falls under our insurance and our indemnification, and it's just being facilitated by a community member. It's a 2-week pilot that didn't require a coastal development permit. Based on what we learned from this pilot, if we so choose to move forward with a permanent placement of these fire pits in the future, that actually will require a full coastal development permit and all the reviews and studies that go along with that. We'll also be working closely with our insurance provider on best practices for a longer term use. Our belief is that, as was mentioned earlier, illegal fires happen on the beaches all the time. The sheriff's office does their best to enforce, but obviously it's challenging. And so the hope is that these fire pits provide a smaller footprint, a more controlled fire. They are on the beach at the bottom of some pretty high bluffs, and so they're hopefully as far away from dry vegetation as possible. There is always a risk, and the fire district has been consulted on this. They're not big on any open flames anywhere, but understand that we're trying to manage this in the safest way possible. John, is there anything else we need to add to that?
Okay. Great. Any more questions? Any questions from council on it?
If I could follow up a little bit. So when you said fire reviewed or okay with it, but they haven't stated anything. I mean, they're just, I get it. Anything with flame and
Yeah, they're not an approval agency for this particular pilot, and so they were consulted, I think, by the applicant and by city staff, and so they're not approving it or supportive of it. Simply shared some of their concerns related to having open flames anywhere in the city. John, looks like
I had a chance to review their comments before the meeting started, and basically what they concluded is the city and the council is choosing to initiate this program, and they are not a permit provider with that, as the city and the city council's decision discretion to do this. Our conversations in our project review team level was, hey, as a general rule, we're not excited about open flames, as Matthew indicated. But their official position to us has been, we're not party to this. We're not a permittee or permitter on this issue. It is your call in terms of how you approach it and deal with it, and that's their statement officially.
And putting something in a ring or controlled area as opposed to what's the current practice is going on out there is just dig a hole and we'll just burn, right? So now the idea, we'll have it contained. I think some of the fear is the blowing embers, that is something that we were all becoming more aware of in light of what's happening down south. So it just, to me, is anything that can control, you can control somebody's visibly there, right? Especially during this pilot period. And I guess we can have the discussions after the pilot, which it's a 2-week period, right?
2-week period.
Within a 2-month period, right? They're going to pick 2 weeks out of the 2 months.
They're going to find the window when they can most easily access from
Right,
based on
tough time of the
waves,
year, tough
based
time of the
on weather, all of those things,
Yeah.
because Eddie Andrini and the crew are going to have to physically go down and truck those down and set those. So that's the weather window issue they're looking at. And basically at that point, that starts the 2-week period, and they have to be off the sand within 2 weeks
Right.
per the coastal commissions.
And as part of that, somebody will always be there. They're not just going to light a fire and leave and say, oh, it's in the air. Somebody's always there, right? That's the idea of having.
This is an open pits. They're not going to be managed. There's not going to be staff. There is not going to be anyone overseeing this. We do have a closure point for the beach, not the beach itself, but for the parking lot. And basically, that's really the control point for this, as much as that's been a control point for the last 30 plus
But it's
50
not.
years. But it's not.
Yeah.
But I think your first piece of that conversation was the most pertinent, which is that the hope is, and the belief is that containing those within a pit that are basically low smoke and basically designed around trying to keep the embers down, and also keeping those in a contained area of the pit is far better than the alternative of an entire stump or tree being lit ablaze and going there. So
Or
that's
all the
hope.
Christmas trees. I know
A
somebody
lot
used to
of
save all their Christmas trees. And
the other piece of that, our fencing along Poplar for a while was being used for a lot of firewood. So
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Penrose.
Yeah, I originally was very excited about this project, thinking it would be a possible improvement. After the fires in Southern California, I have to withdraw that approval. You cannot contain embers. You do not have anybody policing this. There is no reason to assume that those embers couldn't light fires in the dunes, on people's properties. I think in view of what's been going on in Southern California, I'm scared to death. And I can't approve of this project right now. I think, if we give it some time and we look at other ways to help teenagers and kids out, I'm fine with that, but not fire. It's too scary. We get high winds up here. Who knows where those embers go? So I'm against it.
Thank you. Councilmember Riddick.
I'm in favor of the project, as it is a pilot project for 2 weeks. A lot of work and thought has gone into it so far. There are many cities on the coast that do it. Carmel is one of them. You can go down to Carmel River Beach, and there's fire pits, so they have a lot of experience. And I think going forward, if we decide to go forward after the pilot, we want to consult with them on best practices. They're just, down the road, so to speak. I do like the idea of, containing the fire. What we would be having is a fire pit as opposed to bonfires, right? Bonfires are uncontrolled. They can be really big. I've seen really big ones down there. I've seen the mess it causes. I like the idea of managing it and giving people a coastal visitor experience. So I'm standing by my original support for doing a pilot project. And I would move that we permit the temporary placement of up to 4 fire pits under a pilot project on Poplar Beach between January 22nd and March 31st.
Can I second with and add something in there?
No one seconded it yet, so if you want to comment further.
Oh,
you can.
okay, because I think part of the decision of when to do this should be obviously spare the air days. We're not going to burn, right? We're not going to have fires if that's been declared. Also, I think, a good scout is, be prepared. So I think that's something, wind is something I think would be under consideration. I think where is she? No, here she is. I think that's something, I know she's personally, her family's been affected.
That's the problem. How strong a wind, how big a fire? Is a fire in a fire going to stop people from doing a bonfire in addition?
Do you want to put your mic on if you're going to speak, please?
Yeah, I mean, I'm sorry, it just makes no sense to me. If it's a very windy, what's a very windy day? It was windy today. It was really windy last week. So you say, okay, if the wind is really bad, then we won't have fires in our fire pits. And that's not going to stop bonfires. That's not going to stop somebody who wants to do an illegal bonfire. If we really care about what's going on in terms of the safety of our community, then we don't have fires on the beach.
Okay.
So Paul, were you considering like having them consult with staff on when to do it?
How is it currently set up?
People just do it anytime.
No, they've set fires anytime, but how is this 2-week going to be set up to let staff know we're going to do this? And would staff then concur?
If I could, just, one of the provisions of this is that the state has asked that the city have a monitor and someone there when they're commencing with the install and taking it out. Obviously, that will require us to coordinate with the timing. We can certainly look at what the weather window looks like, concur that that makes sense to proceed with that, and go with that. And I think the proponent is here, and I know one of the things that they have indicated all along was that they were hoping and planning to be participating in this, monitoring what was going on and dealing with that. And that's always something that they have indicated because they want to see what's going on and kind of understand what's happening and be able to record what the value and benefits of those things are. But I think the applicant is here. She spoke during public forum, didn't know this was going to be pulled, so that I believe there's a request to be heard.
Yeah, that would be great. Please.
I kind of just wanted to your point, Councilwoman Penrose, I completely agree that fires are out of control and it is something that's completely dangerous to the coast side. And I just think that regardless of if we have infrastructure in place to carry out safe bonfires, they're going to happen. And we have had for years, infrastructure in place to regulate bonfires and have people taken off the beach when they're having bonfires, and that doesn't stop them. I live on Poplar Beach, and I have consistently seen trash from illegal bonfires and embers left from illegal bonfires for years and years and years. And I recognize that problem, and I'm trying to fix it. And placing bonfires in a more controlled environment is going to help alleviate the problem more than just kind of continuing with what we already have, because teenagers are going to have bonfires. It's not something that can be regulated. And honestly, overregulation of these bonfires makes the problem worse because it makes people likely to run away from their bonfires on the beach and leave burning fires, opposed to having safe spaces and the time to put out fires, which people will do if they have the opportunity. I'm confident that nobody wants to leave burning fires on the beach. And I also, to what kind of you're saying, I am planning on having people coming and monitoring the situation, because the goal of my project is to have feedback and collect data on how people are using the pits and what works best and what is the safest method for keeping these bonfires under control and monitored.
But you won't be putting the fires out yourself at the end of the evening.
On the nights that I am planning on on the nights that I'm planning on having the extension added to the Poplar Beach parking lot and having that later, I will be having people present at the bonfire pits who can, if need be, put out fires if people don't put them out.
I'm not sure what that means.
I
You're
will
going to
have-
be putting out, you or someone that you assign will put out all bonfires on the beach, all pit fires on the beach.
I will have people present at the nights of my pilot project at the hours that I have set up to put out bonfires in my pits
Yes.
that I have on the beach.
Thank you.
Great, thank you for the extra information.
Mr. Mayor,
Yeah.
just, I don't want to interrupt the discussion. We do have somebody in person who would like to speak and someone online, if you would be inclined to let them speak.
Let's see, who's in person?
Eric Devoti asked from Abundant Grace, asked if he could speak.
Come on in, Eric, thanks.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Council. Thank you for this opportunity. I'll be very brief. Speaking from our experience doing the Coastside Clean Team, there have been countless times when we find hot embers and even live fires on Sunday mornings. We find wood on the beach that's been half burned and it has nails in it. We have found fire pits, and we sift through it and we just try to take out all the nails. And I think as a safety issue, it makes a lot of sense to try a pilot program like this, see how it goes. As the son of a firefighter, I would just suggest consideration of perhaps one design change, which is to kind of attach a lid on a chain that you could just put on top at the end of the evening and basically suffocate the fire. Thank you.
Thank you, Eric. I'd like to repeat that recommendation. The recommendation's been made that there be a chain with a lid on it to place over the fire. I think that's a great idea. I was going to suggest, since it's on Poplar Beach, right? So, people have cars, I suggest, at least for the pilot, because then we might figure out how to make it a more regular thing, is, have a pail with water and to be able to pour over embers. There's a lot of steps to making 100% sure a fire is out. The other comment, okay.
I just wanted to agree that I want to incorporate something that has some kind of thing to put out the water, probably a pail of water or something that you can fill with water to put out those fires. That is a part of my plan to ensure fire safety for these pits.
Yeah. A cover is a great idea because it's also permanent and you're basically suffocating the fire by depriving it of oxygen. So that is a great idea. So, Chrislyn is online. Thanks, Chrislyn.
Thank you so much. I just wanted to reiterate my positivity for this pilot, although I fully understand with all that's going on in LA and just fires in general. As somebody who consistently witnesses illegal bonfires, I do really feel like it is a best practice for us to provide places for people to do that safely. Love the idea of the top on it. And, but just want to reiterate that the Chamber does support this pilot project as a safety precaution for the bonfires that happen. And I promise you, I've seen people at those bonfires that absolutely should know better because of their role in this community. And Carmel has, to Ms. Ruddock's point, Carmel has done a lot of work on this space, even when I was back there, and I'm sure there's a lot of lessons learned. And I just really hope that this project goes forward, and we go to make it safer. And this also might be a starting point of talking more about the sheriff's contract in future iterations that does have somebody to go by more frequently to help ensure that illegal fires are not happening, because the only way to stop that would be to have a police presence there. Thank you.
Thank you, Crystalline. So I might amend the motion. Before I do, just one thought that's been on my mind since this issue has come up, and I think about it. How many of you in the audience live in a house where there's a neighbor who has a fire pit? Anybody? Yeah. So I'm just saying, it seems to me like people with fire pits right next to everybody's houses, somehow we kind of live with that and don't think it's an immediate fire situation or danger. So, I try and take everything in together. I'm sure if the fire department rode around and saw all those fire pits for every single one, they'd say, well, that's not a great idea. Regarding your question about, the fire department would never say it's a great idea. They'd rather err on the side of no fires when it's really dry. And we'll have to think about this, as the pilot moves forward. Really think about summertime when it is dry and you have a lot of folks out from school and ways we can keep our eye on this. So I'm going to remake the motion here.
I have a
sorry. Go
real
ahead,
quick,
Patrick.
I spent a lot of time in Truckee and have a place up there my parents built, and we have a lot of woods in the backyard, and we all have fire pits, but we are now told no fire pits. So because of it's really dry out there, and I'm glad they changed that ordinance. It's in Todd honor. And so they switched, all the neighbors switched to propane. I brought that forward today, but I'm not saying go to switch propane, but that's an alternative because my friends built this beautiful fire pit like they built, and I was there watching them build it, and you can convert it. So we have option A or option B. The other one was before we had to convert to propane, we had to have a meshing over the pit. That was one of the conditions that we could do at one point, so it evolved slowly. That might be an idea. We can easily do that. I have people in the that work with metal that we do a screening over so that you catch some of the bouncing, popping ambers, if you would, if we want to go to that level. The top that you guys were talking about, you guys were all reading my mind. That was one of the things I was going to sit, but I didn't want to hit the mic on that. But I think that's an excellent idea because then we can, figure, and that can be also done with the metal fabricator. Also, maybe do it in light aluminum. It doesn't have to be steel where it's heavy, and a lock. So I think it's a great idea. All these things that we're doing as a community right now, this is how we make a great project. And I think this is a great project. It's a great pilot project, and it's a project that needs to be tested. We're going from uncontrolled fires to controlled fires. We're actually doing the community a blessing because I've seen the fires down there. They're rampant. They're on Friday nights. They're all over the place. If it's controlled and we can control it now, we have 4, we'll control 4.
Thanks, Patrick. Those are all great ideas. As a council, we could take those up and start thinking about any recommendations and ordinances that we can provide the public with around their fires. Thanks. Okay. Well, we're still on consent items. Yeah.
Mr. Mayor, we did not take a motion on that item.
No,
yet.
I'm going to do that now. Yeah.
Okay.
So I move by resolution that we permit the temporary placement up to 4 fire pilot pits under a pilot project on Poplar Beach between January 22nd and March 31st, with incorporating some of the recommendations you've heard this evening about having a possible cover or water nearby during that pilot period.
Second.
Another motion, and that motion is that we approve this project only if wire, mesh, and lids are used on all fire pits.
I second the motion.
Do I have any other motions before we continue?
I'd like to restate a motion.
Okay.
I move that by resolution, we permit the temporary placement of up to 4 fire pits under a pilot project on Poplar Beach between January 22nd and March 31st, 2025, conditioned on incorporating lids and mesh covers to prevent the release of embers and to put the...
Motion, wasn't it?
Well, I wanted to frame it in a more positive way.
Well, I think I framed it in a very positive way. I don't think we need to hear you redo my motion. Thank you.
Well, I made the original motion.
You
Yeah,
made the
so-
original motion,
yes.
and I made a second motion.
And we've had a third motion.
Yeah.
The
Is,
third motion is the same as the second motion.
well, it was a little different. Is there a
How is
second?
it different?
I'm not going to, I just think it's slightly reworded. So is there a second for the third motion?
We have a first and a second for
Because we voted on the
council,
last one.
yes, we'll vote on the last one. So we need to vote on Deborah's.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
I second the motion, Deborah Reddick.
Which Deborah's motion had the,
Second, so we vote on that first.
I think he seconded it.
Did you second? Yeah.
Because it was the same. They were both very similar.
Okay. So,
I have a procedural suggestion. So there have been 3 motions made. Under your rules of order, that's the maximum number of motions that can be on the floor. And so assuming they've all had a second, and I'm not sure if the third motion, did it have a second? Yeah. Okay, so they've all had seconds. So under your procedural rules, you actually take them in reverse order. So motion number 3 would be the first motion that you vote on. No, that was yours.
Well, I made the original motion, and there was another motion, and that was the third motion.
yours was the third. No, yours was the third.
No, not yours was the third. No, I made the first one, and there was a second one, and yours was the
Councilmember Reddick, your motion was the third as I counted, and your second. Oh, I did make a second motion. I didn't finish.
No, I made the first motion.
There was a question of whether there, Paul, Commissioner Nagengast seconded, but conditionally seconded, and I don't know whether it officially was a second for Debbie Reddick's.
I think that was mine.
Yeah, that was yours, and I wasn't, I don't think we were committed that there was a second actually officially to that motion. That's where Maggie was going.
For the original motion, I had Brownstone with Reddick seconding it, and then I had Penrose making the third, and then, sorry, the second, and then the third back to Reddick being the motion.
Okay, so apologies. The third motion was,
Reddick.
okay. So we're taking that in reverse order now.
So yes, I
Okay.
have that written down verbatim if you want it back.
So, and that was seconded, right?
Correct, by Johnson.
Great. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I would suggest a
Aye.
roll call vote, just
Roll
given
call?
the number of
Okay.
motions on the floor.
Take a roll call.
Okay, Councilmember Penrose,
Aye.
Councilmember Johnson,
Aye.
Councilmember Nagengast,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Reddick,
Yes.
and Mayor Brownstone.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Great. So our last consent item that's been pulled is item 1E.
Right, thank you. And it's basically just a couple of questions, just the community that I've been talking to wasn't exactly certain what exactly is happening on that property. We know the housing's going in. This is 880, Stone Pine. The idea of having the parcel map, which then allows separation of 3 different properties, right? There'll be the courtyard, the housing, and then along the creek is the corridor where it's drainage and ability to put a trail there. But just to make it clear is that this ultimately, it's not yet, but the idea would, it would become county property within the city's jurisdiction. But county property follows all the city rules, regulations, and codes. And these 46 or 47 homes that are going in there count towards the city's housing requirements.
That is all correct, and maybe I'll just share a little bit of context. In other communities, not within the coastal zone, the county might have what's called intergovernmental immunity and not be required or bound to follow our general plan and our planning codes. But because we're within the coastal zone, and please correct me if there's more nuance to this, but because we're in the coastal zone and we have a local coastal land use plan that ultimately is enforced by us on behalf of the Coastal Commission, when the county owns and operates property within city limits, they are bound by our local codes. And vice versa. When we have property in the unincorporated area, we have the same restrictions. And then I think the important point is the RHNA, the Regional Housing Needs Assessment, or allocation, is what we're under from the state to build a certain amount, or to try to build a certain amount of housing, and we get credit for housing that's developed within the city. That would be the case with this project, even though it's being developed by the county. It's within the city limits, so it meets our RHNA number, or it counts towards our RHNA numbers.
Thank you. That's it.
What you got? Motion? Go ahead.
Make a motion to approval of the final parcel map for 880 Stone Pine Road associated with Stone Pine Cove Coastal Development Permit.
Second?
I guess technically it's adopting a resolution approving. Should I add that in?
Yeah, we'll take a roll call. That's good. Good enough.
Councilmember Penrose?
Yes.
Councilmember Johnson?
Yes.
Councilmember Nagangas?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Reddick?
Yes.
And Mayor Brownstone?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Consent calendar has now been approved. We're going to take a 10-minute break. Thanks. Okay. We are now going to review ordinances and public hearings. We're going to start with item 2A regarding the sale of 880 Stone Pine Road. Are we going to have a staff report on that, or?
This is an item requesting a continuance.
Right.
So as I mentioned earlier, staff is planning to bring forward a proposed purchase and sale agreement. This item was originally noticed for a prior meeting and has been continued, I believe, actually twice. But this is a request by staff to continue the public hearing to a date certain of February 4th at 7 p.m., the regular meeting.
Great. I don't believe there's any public comments on that. No questions from staff. If not, we can make a resolution. Would someone like to make a motion?
I move that we continue the public hearing to a date certain of February 4th, 2025. This resolution of public interest in convening approving the city's sale of a portion of 880 Stone Pine Road, a 6.87 acre portion of APN 056-250 or 25180 for the construction of a 47 unit affordable farm worker housing project.
Second. Can I have a roll call?
Councilmember Penrose?
Yes.
Councilmember Johnson?
Yes.
Councilmember Nagengast?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Reddick?
Yes.
Mayor Brownstone?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Passed. Thank you. Resolutions and staff reports. Item 3A, the Half Moon Bay Little League Facility Use Agreement for Smith Fields.
Thank you, Mayor, council members. I will be brief. Tonight before you is a request to consider a new facility use agreement between the city and Half Moon Bay Little League. Tonight, we have Justin Kern, who is the current seated president of Half Moon Bay Little League, and I believe he will say hi at least and answer any questions that you have. And but pleased to be here and pleased to see Little League represented here. And I won't go through this. We have a long history with Half Moon Bay Little League in this city. There is a long and interesting history with Smithfield. And I think, as indicated in the staff report, we are working on a project, Public Works is working on that, to get Smithfield itself under a coastal development permit and to allow for moving forward with a phase 1 parking, ADA, stormwater, and the like, and also to deal with a new water main going down Wave Crest so we can irrigate all the play fields in Smithfield. And there is a potential donor in the wings for that project as well. That leads us into kind of where are we? Half Moon Bay Little League has operated out at the Smithfield since 1969 and continues to operate. In 2019, the council approved a 5-year agreement with Half Moon Bay Little League, and that is the last agreement. That expired in May. We apologize. I'll fully own that it became obvious as we were talking about and talking through some of the concerns and issues about just operational stuff and the coming fall league that we figured out that agreement actually expired in May of 2024. So we've been working since that point to develop relationships with the new board and to work through some issues and things out there with regard to this agreement. I don't think I have to tell you very much about this other than there is some awkwardness in the agreement in terms of what is what. The simple answer to a question posed is, what does Little League take care of? Basically anything that looks like a brown infield on fields 1, 2, 4, and 5 is Little League's responsibility. Anything that looks like what should be grass, which is usually grass and turf, is the city's responsibility. Our parking lot is our responsibility, and then in terms of maintenance, and thanks to Public Works for their recent resurfacing there, appreciate that, and some of the other work that's being done. But that's really the issue and what this agreement is subject to. There was also an exclusive use of the batting cages, which are located between fields 1 and 2, which are the most westerly of those fields there, and I can't really readily point them out, but those there, and most of you, I'm sure, have been out and participated at some point in those activities. There are any given year 300 to 350 kids who participate in Half Moon Bay Little League. And for those 300 to 350 kids, I'm sure that Justin can tell you how many volunteers, parents, board members are involved in that. I don't know the number, but I know it's a large number and that are part of that. So it's a very large reach within the community. And obviously, out at Smithfield, we also operate in the summertime a Junior Giants program, and there are various events that occur. Our adult softball has been extremely popular in the fall, both co-ed and men's league, and there continue to be different events that occur throughout the summertime particularly. The use agreement terms are pretty consistent and basically much the same as what was in the prior agreement, and I'm not going to spend a great deal of time going through this. The bottom line kind of to this is that Little League has basically two seasons. They have the main season that most of us think about, which is this winter, spring season and into early summer. And then there is generally a fall ball, which is more of a developmental league, and they play oftentimes some of the other local teams from on the other side of the hill, primarily, is my understanding. And that usually operates. There have been some years, I think, that I've been here that hasn't operated, but that's their seasons. We work closely with them to develop and make sure the scheduling is done on an annual basis, and that we are making allowances for other events such as our shredding day that we put in during April for at that time, and various other activities that may occur at Smithfield. We, as I said, we have responsibility for some pieces of that: the turf fields, the parking lot, the roadways, utility, and ultimately the physical plant of the concession stand itself, the bleachers, things of that nature. The primary policy question tonight, and I'll sort of take it into two pieces to that aren't reflected, the second piece here. But the primary one that was identified in your report is that the original agreement that expired in 2024 was a no-fee agreement. And there were justifications for that, and there, I think, are adequate justifications to at least consider moving forward in that vein with this agreement, including prior investment, current investment, and basically community outreach and nonprofit status of this group. However, we also recognize that we have been starting to apply a fee structure to any user that sort of starts to privatize a public use or public facility, and the council may wish to consider doing that. The second piece, which I think goes along with this, is the potential for modifying the term of the agreement, and certainly that is within the policy direction and consideration of the council tonight. 5 years is a pretty lengthy time. It's what the council to approve in the original agreement, but that may not be the term that you wish to choose to do so. So with that, open to any questions or comments for that, and we look forward to your policy direction and possible approval of an agreement tonight. Thank you.
Okay, so the process we have, just for our new members, just to be clear, first I'll ask for clarifying questions only, not comments, and then we'll open up for public comment, and then we'll return to council for discussion. So are any clarifying questions from council?
If I could just ask, thank you, John, and you mentioned in tonight 1G, there's some services going on with anticipated some improvements that may happen. We don't know that yet. But we just don't know, right? We can't say, certainly we do know we're doing the environmental, we're going to put an effort forward to be able to have things lined up so we can, should the funding be necessary. But at this point in time, we just really don't know. We can't certainly say, oh, we'll know 5 years from now, or say even 2 years from now.
We don't, I mean, what we can be fairly certain of is that we will be, in the coming months, before the Planning Commission to consider the environmental document and the coastal development permit for both the field itself and the water main down Wave Crest. Those have been identified as separate capital projects, and there is significant, if not all, the funding available for the water main, so that could proceed forward, and that would be extremely helpful, regardless of whether we're able to move. And the idea behind that was to build the water line so you're not having to tear it up if you're going and doing paving, grading on the park itself. You've got to put the backflow devices and things of that nature in the mix. So that certainly can move forward, and Maz can speak more clearly to that. But that piece is an affirming yes. We hope to be at the commission level.
Thank you, John. Just wanted to add that we're actually working on the initial study CEQA document right now as we speak. So we're hoping to have that public in the next month or two, and then we would be looking at scheduling for Planning Commission. And as John mentioned, that would be for the entirety of the build out for the park. Although the first phase is, as mentioned, the water line extension, parking upgrades, and stormwater management features for the project. And yes, there is a donor that was interested, and we're going to continue seeking that potential donation, but we're also going to be seeking grant funding for this facility.
Thank you, Maz. Yeah, thank you. Any more clarifying questions? If not, I'm going to go to public comment. I don't think there's any from in the room, but I see there's one online. Crystalline?
Justin, I think, he may not have put a card in, but I know he was interested in speaking.
Oh, sorry. I didn't see that. Okay.
We'll get a card filled out.
Oh, sorry about that. I just wanted to say hi to everyone and say thanks for your consideration tonight. I'm Justin Kern. I'm the president of the Little League. As John mentioned, we've been closely working with him on the updated facility use agreement, and strongly in favor of keeping as it is, as we would be on Little League. It has enabled us to do some things that other leagues in the Bay Area haven't been able to do, keeping fees low for the kids, allowing us to raise money predominantly through scholarships, through sponsorships of the local community, some of which goes directly to remitting fees for community members who can't otherwise afford to play. And a large portion of which, our largest budget item, goes to obviously working with the city on field maintenance. So here to answer any questions, and just wanted to introduce myself and say thanks for the time.
Thank you, appreciate it. Crystalline, online.
Thank you. This is not as a chamber. This is as a adult softball player. I want to say that I'm in favor of the no fee. The league has definitely put in so much work on those fields. I would just like to reiterate, although I know it's already been mentioned, but just from a player, that it would just be really nice if those fields are made available during times when the Little League is not using them, because the field that the adults use is very problematic, and I've lost 3 players to twisted ankles because of that outfield. So when we go to practice, it's at least nice to be able to practice on a field that's not going to break us. And then sometimes multiple teams will go out to try to practice at the same time, and sometimes the Little League fields are locked, which is unfortunate. And I have even had Little League volunteers, I don't think it's those in leadership, but literally chase us off the field and tell us that we're not allowed to touch it. So I just want that to be, if there's not going to be a fee associated, then I would like us to be able to utilize it when the kids are not. Thank you.
Thank you, Crystalline. Okay, let's open up for discussion.
So I don't play baseball. I never, or football or anything like that. I was into skiing, so that's not my sport. But what Crystalline just brought up, I would like that kind of, I didn't know that, the Little Leagues locking it up and the other people. I'd like to know more about that, because I think something that we're actually putting forward into and paying for, I think everybody should be able to use it. That's new to me, and I would just like to bring that up. But that's new, and Crystalline, thanks for bringing that up.
May I speak to that? We did, frankly, the reason we got together and figured out that the agreement had expired was concerns because we were finding the fields locked, and we had seen some folks turned away. We've met with the Little League. We've addressed those issues, and the fields are not being locked, but we appreciate what Crystalline was raising, because it was occurring. And again, I think there was some deep-seated sort of turf and territorial issues and concerns. Little League spends a lot of money investing in those fields, and so there's a challenge there at points with that deal. So we have resolved that, and I think that if the council is so inclined, we can probably put a little tighter language in this agreement to address that, and if you direct that, we'll do that. But we have agreements in place, and that is not occurring today. But we were trying to correct that very issue.
I would like to see what other council members have to say, because that is a new subject for me, and I'm not that, educated on that, but I think it should be something that everybody should be able to utilize, but not destroy. Just on the same subject we were talking about fire pits, we don't want to have damage going down and putting more money into something that somebody's making at a level of Little League, is what I'm assuming, where it's perfect, because we have Trinta Park over by where my auto shop is, and I know they don't really like people using theirs because that's their own little private field, if you would. So it's all Little League there. But here we are in a community where it's supposed to be for everybody, so I'm not sure what the other council members think, but I think it should be for the community at large.
Yeah, I guess I have a couple of questions. I think the Little League is an amazing organization, and I think they do a fabulous job with kids. I think it's so critically important that the kids in Half Moon Bay have something like Little League to rely on, because I think, group sports teach so much to children about how to behave in society, and it's also just plain fun. I do have some questions, though. I would like to know a little bit more about how much the city is spending on Little League. It says we provide servicing for public restrooms, all utility infrastructure, maintenance, maintaining roadways and parking lots, preparing turf fields prior. We may not be able to get precise figures on all of these items because some of them are shared by others than Little Leaguers. But I would like to know something about what the cost is. I think the public deserves to know that. It's the public's tax dollars that are paying for the Little League fields. So they have a right to an accounting on what the costs are. I'd also like to know a little bit more about what children are charged. I see that you have scholarships, and I think that's great. But what do most kids pay? Where does that money go? Do we have an annual report from you? That kind of thing. So I think that's a lot of information to try to get. I think we're not going to be able to get it in time for me to be able to vote on this and be comfortable. So I would like to consider doing a one-year extension of the agreement while we get that information out to the public, so the public has some ability to understand where their tax dollars are going. We have other sports like horseback riding, which are not being subsidized by the city. So there are trade-offs both ways. There's no easy answer for this question, but I do think the more information that the public has, the better we can come to reaching a decision here at council about what makes sense.
Thank you, Council Member Penrose. I appreciate your input, because that is something, I was thinking, you mentioned a 1 year, maybe, I was thinking a 2 year, but maybe a 1 year, and because remember, this thing, I think, runs out in May this year, so maybe allowing the city manager extend it another year or so. I don't know how we form it, because at some point, we got to consider a fee. And, improvements are going to start happening. We're going to start, and as you point out, we're already doing things out there. So at some point, it's great to have this fantastic relationship. We also, though, the city, we have to be accountable where our funds are going. So I think I was going to suggest something less than, 5 years. But I think, if 1 year and the ability to maybe extend it, if the city manager needs to another year to get that information so we know. And at some point, too, we may have a better handle on what improvements, whether the water lines in to help with that water pressure out there, the parking lot improvements, just some other additional things where, now it makes sense to have a fee for use of a city facility.
Thanks, Will. Councilmember.
Yeah, I appreciate both Councilmember Penrose and Councilmember Nagangas' concern about the term. And I think a lesser term, makes sense, given that, we're in the middle of improvements and completing plans for even larger improvements. I'd like to know what Justin thinks about the term. 1 year sounds good, but it might not help them very much, maybe 2 years. And as we consider the fee and consider the costs, I think the costs are really important, understanding those costs. But I would also want to know more about the fees, as Deborah mentioned, and the scholarships. I would hate to charge a fee when it might reduce the amount of money that they had available for scholarships, for instance. So I want to understand the trade-offs, the costs and the trade-offs there. But I do agree it makes sense to have a lesser term, like 1 or 2 years. And if Justin would like to comment on the term issue.
Maybe I'll make 2 comments. One is a qualitative or partly qualitative answer on what kids are charged and where some of that money goes, which we're happy to follow up with more information. We have kids between the ages of 4 and 14 that play in Little League. The fee structure ranges from $140 for the season to $245 from the low end of the age group to the high end. The predominant reason for the difference has to do with umping fees, where as the kids get older, we hire professional umps and we compensate those umps. You mentioned the scholarship program. So the scholarship program is a full remittance program that enables, and I don't have the precise number of enrollees, I have the line item memorized. We spend about $5,000 a year on full remittance of fees, and those obviously come from a number of sources, including those who pay full boat, and then the community businesses from which we sell sponsorships that pay for our overall budget. There was the comment on the 10-year. So over the last several years, we've averaged about $41,000 as a league on field improvements. So that's maintenance of the dirt, that's managing warning tracks, that's fencing or scoreboards, and all sorts of items. As John mentioned, we've had locks on fields, not only because we invest in them, but also we've had damage to the fields that we've repaired. I think a shorter term, as short as 1 year, that creates a lot of uncertainty for us on what type of field improvements to do, how to manage it. Obviously, we want to work with you guys on maintaining what has been a growing part of the community. Little League, I don't know if you know the history, used to be a lot more popular than it is. And there was a large drawdown over the last several decades. And we are one of the few areas in the country and the leagues. We actually saw almost a 15% growth this year in Little League involvement. So we want to keep that growth going. Well, the last thing we want to do, and I know I'm going over long, but last thing we want to do is reduce enrollment. And that could take the form of, as Debbie mentioned, reduction in scholarship because we don't have the budget to pay for scholarships and a leasing fee. But also we keep our prices really low. San Mateo is over twice the price because they do have a lease structure with the city of San Mateo. They have exclusive fields where no one else is allowed on them, but they also have a huge Little League, and that the cost of their Little League is almost twice what Half-Moon Bay's is. So that's what we want. Our goals are to have as many kids play Little League for as long as possible and have the best experience possible. Thanks.
That was helpful. But John, do you have an answer to Deborah's other question about like what the city maybe spends on an annual basis?
Certainly, we'd have to. I don't have it offhand. The challenge to that is it was acknowledged, which is that's a shared use park. We have any number of users every morning. There's dog walkers that use the fields. They're using and going out into Wavecrest. They're using the restrooms. There's multiple parties dealing with that. So we can certainly take a look at it and try to ascertain, during this time, I'm assuming, of review to what we think the allocation would be. Certainly, Little League represents a huge number of cars that hit that parking lot. I think that's a basic accepted truth with it. So we know what it takes us to go out and do that. I think 3 to 4 times a year usually. So we can put some dollars and cents to it, but it is difficult because they're not the only users out there, and our own adult softball league, for example, has quite a few folks out there in the parking lot.
Yeah, I don't think we need exact figures.
Yes.
I think if we can get an estimate, and it's not so much for me as it is for the general public who is paying taxes every year, and they want to know where their tax money is going, and I think they have a right to have some estimated cost. And I don't think anybody on council or on staff wants to see Little League go away, certainly, that's for sure. And if 1 year is not long enough, I'd be happy to go with a 2-year extension.
If you're looking at me, I would certainly think the 2 years would be preferable to give some assurance to the Little League and give us the chance to do the analysis, and also to see where we are landing on the capital project out there with the Public Works is working on. So I think that does make sense. I would say one of the significant costs will always be equipment necessary to maintain and deal with it. But whether this was soccer fields, open play fields, or baseball fields, it's the same equipment. So, but those are things that we do have to replace, purchase and replace over time. So we'll have to put some accounting to that and figure out where we are in terms of the usage on our existing Toro mower that was placed out there, and some of the things of that nature.
I did like Councilmember Johnson's question, though, about locking the gate. I do agree that that's an issue, and I guess the question is, do we want to put something about that in the agreement, or he says they've worked it out something informally, but
May I speak to that, Mayor, because I think there's kind of two issues, if I could. What this agreement says is during their season, they have exclusive use of those fields, and therefore basically those are locked and not available to the general public for the most part, because they're doing regular maintenance, they have equipment out, they're activating that. And so we could certainly take a look at that and evolve this around that issue, but that's really the piece, which is during in-season, it's an exclusive use.
Right.
Off-season, it is not an exclusive. They have no right to it, and the public has right and access to it. I think the secret, to this one is trying to figure out how during season the public still has some access. And I've shared with them, I've shared with others. I spent 14, 15 years chasing balls and throwing batting practice with my son and trying to find unlocked Little League and baseball fields out around the Bay Area has always been a challenge with this. And so I appreciate that. I think that we can work through the issue and address it. I think we have generally worked through it. The big issue is they wanted to lock the double gates that allow equipment in because trucks, kids and big trucks were going out and making a mess of the fields, which is bad for all of us. But I think that we can tighten that down in this agreement and make that happen and come up to a solution with it.
Well, I think we do have a good Little League program here. They host tournaments. Everybody loves to come to Half Moon Bay, I understand, for the baseball tournaments because it's such a beautiful place to come for baseball. And I can't help but think, I grew up in New York City. You remember the movie Sandlot? Remember with the kids and the big dog and all that stuff, right? When we wanted to play baseball, we go to a park. If there's bases there or not, we'd put rocks, whatever, we'd make as long as there's some dirt and maybe a little grass, we figured out our own games. But we had big parks, where we could do that. Baseball's a little different, you can't, we use the tennis courts here on the high schools, right? People can sign up to play tennis at our high school, I think, tennis courts, as far as I know. So,
There's a club, yeah.
Right. It's kind of more open to the public, and the gate might be locked at certain times, but people sign up for certain times. It's kind of different when you have 18 kids, on a baseball game that's going to go on for hours and hours and taking a whole field. So I'm fine with a 2-year lease for now, and let's start working on thinking about how do you have more access to the sport, for other people, whether it's kids or adults, to want to play a little baseball. Maybe we need some access to one of the fields. How many fields do we have now that we maintain? 3, is it, or 5 fields? Okay. So I would propose to our Little League director here, maybe think about how one field might be able to be rotated for more access to, kids who just want to play some baseball and not necessarily be in an official league, or even some grown-ups. And it doesn't mean it couldn't be locked up, just people would sign up for the use. I understand, sometimes you just don't want anybody going in there and wrecking a field up, but...
Can I I'll be
Yeah.
very brief on this point. We are very open to that. We want as many people in Half Moon Bay, whether they're part of Little League or not, to use the fields for approved use. What we've had issues from before, and the reason for the language in the agreement about locking it is dogs, bikes, cars,
Right.
people living there. And that's what we want to make sure that we avoid.
Great. And Jen Moore had a comment?
I served on the board of Little League, and the fields are locked because Little League spends a lot of time, money, resources to keep those fields up for the kids to play on. people get on those fields and they destroy them. They let their kids ride their bikes, their dogs on there, digging up holes, you know, what other dogs do other stuff too. They don't respect the fields. And yes, kids deserve to play on there, adults, whatever. But if there's not gonna be people looking out for those fields, I just don't think they should be unlocked unless there's somebody there to watch over them. There's a lot of money, time, people's time, hearts. I'm gonna tell you how many hours I spent down there with my son. I mean, I coached, I served on the board, I was there every weekend, hours and hours, selling merchandise, working. You guys have no idea what parents do down there. And to just open up the fields and let people just do whatever is not okay. And I do know that the city is part owners or whatever the deal is, but you have to know what Little League puts into that and what the families put into that. So just please take that into consideration.
Yeah, and I wasn't suggesting unlocking all the fields at all, but what I was saying was that we might be able to rotate a field that can have access and people sign up for time in those fields, not just, you know, open and stuff.
So to the mayor, Jen's a good friend of mine, and I've seen her. She's done a lot of work with that, and her son is an excellent ball player. My point that I was trying to make wasn't to have dogs out there and four-wheel drives, and motorcycles and mountain bikes. My thought process was playing Frisbee, wrestling around, you know, without digging the grass up, running on it, jogging on it, whatever you do on grass. We don't have a lot of grass. We got a lot of beach. That's where my point was. I want to be clear on that. It wasn't to abuse it. It was to use it and use it normal and not abuse it. And that's like normal grass activities is what I'm trying to say.
Are we ready for a motion?
Yes. I move that the City Council of Half Moon Bay authorizes the city manager to execute a facility use agreement with the Half Moon Bay Little League for the use of a portion of Smithfield Park for 2 years.
Second. Roll call?
Councilmember Penrose?
Yes.
Councilmember Johnson?
Yes.
Councilmember Nagengast?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Reddick?
Yes.
Mayor Brownstone?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Item 3B, 555 Kelly Avenue, Affordable Housing Development, consideration of an exclusive negotiating agreement, also known as an ENA, between the city and Mercy Housing. Yeah. And we're going to have staff make a few comments on this, right, Matthew? Is that right? And for those who want to speak on this, also, staff is really going to clarify what we're discussing here. In other words, an ENA is very different from discussing the merits of the 555 Kelly project. So I want everyone to be clear on that. I want to say that myself, and then staff will elaborate on that a little more. Thanks.
Thank you, Mayor and City Council members. Mike Noche, Housing Programs Manager for the city. I also just want to mention that we're joined from some members of Mercy Housing who are here this evening. So if there are any clarifying questions for staff or Mercy Housing, we're happy to do so. Here this evening, and I'll move through slides fairly expeditiously, but if we need to pull up any of the slides that I go through, please let me know and I'll go back to them. So the exclusive negotiations agreement is what's in front of you this evening. I'm going to first just provide some background. We've been discussing this project when the city released, starting back in May of 2022. when the city released, in February of 2022, when the city released RFQ, request for qualifications, the city received one submission from Mercy Housing and ALAS, and we have a lot of information. I'll run through some dates, just important dates, and then in the following slides, but just want to reiterate for the public at hmbcity.com/555-Kelly. We do have all project documents posted on the city website, as well as a timeline similar to what I'm about to just very quickly run through. The exclusive negotiations agreement that is in front of you this evening is a second exclusive negotiations agreement. The city first entered into an ENA, as I'll refer to it, moving forward in October of 2022. That was really meant to go over general tasks while preparations were made for the formal entitlement process. That ENA was allowed to expire, and I'll get into dates. In 2024, that ENA expired. Again, the focus of that first ENA was on the entitlement process, which I'll go in my next slide here. The project did receive entitlements from the Planning Commission. There were 3 appeals on the project, and those were heard by City Council on June 26, 2024. City Council upheld the Planning Commission's approval and also created an ad hoc committee, which I know was referenced earlier this evening, so I won't belabor that. But that was when that ad hoc committee was formed on June 26, 2024. Since that time, the city and Mercy have been engaged in negotiations regarding property disposition, affordable housing and property disposition agreement, While those negotiations are going on, Mercy has requested a second ENA, and I'll get into some of the reasons for that. I'll also reiterate, and I know many of you have heard me say this, but layered financing for affordable housing is a very common aspect to most affordable housing developments, and what that means is that a developer will seek financing from various sources. There's also a state tax credit program as well, which provides additional funding on top of initial grants and so forth that a developer is going to seek. Mercy Housing was awarded through an application to the state, and you see HCD here, which is the California Department of Housing and Community Development. They were awarded just over $2.7 million as part of the IAG grant. HCD, throughout stages of an award for a grant, does require stages of site control as well as standard agreements. And as negotiations are ongoing on the affordable housing and property disposition agreement, Mercy does need to demonstrate site control through an ENA as part of, to recognize that both the city and Mercy are actively engaged to finalize terms on that agreement. It does not mean those terms have been decided on, but it's just an acknowledgement that that discussion is ongoing. The ENA is also valuable to Mercy in regards to this their next wave of funding. Typically, it is a multi-year process for an affordable housing developer to be awarded various funding from whether it's state or county. Mercy Housing did apply to county funding last year. They were not awarded in that NOFA release, Notice of Funding Availability. However, I know they do plan to go out for county funding again this year. It's a very competitive process. Although you may have a qualifying project, you are not guaranteed on being awarded. So the funding that they have received, there are agreements that need to be signed with the state, and Mercy does need to demonstrate being in active negotiations, which is why we're before you this evening. Again, I'm happy to reiterate any points. I don't think I've missed any of the main components. If the city and Mercy Housing come to an agreement on the affordable housing and property disposition agreement, the ENA would become null and void, the goal of the ENA is to reach terms on these items. It would include terms of a future ground lease. not the ground lease per se, but terms for such. And I will leave the potential motion on the screen for now, and open staff's here for questions as well as Mercy Housing. Thank you very much.
Does council have any clarifying questions? No clarifying questions. Okay, so we will now take public comment. We have a lot of public comments. A guideline that we tend to follow on city council is when we have more than 10 comments, we limit the time. Not always, but often to 2 minutes instead of 3 minutes. And seeing the time of the evening, and we do have a few more ordinance to go through, more items to go through after this. So I'm going to limit the time to 2 minutes instead of 3 for each speaker. Okay? So I'm going to start with Jennifer Moore.
Good evening. It's me again. So I'm here to talk about 555 Kelly again. Of course, we all need affordable housing for everyone. Everyone. So I did some quick research in the back, and I want to start with something with a creative idea. I was talking to the young gentleman in the back, and he works for a union. So I was thinking, why don't we get our own community together, bring in our own workers, create financing within our own community, bring in our own farm workers to live in this little community right here. Mercy has built housing down the street for senior workers. They brought in 20% of local people to fill that. If we did that, we could put in 12 units over here and not overwhelm this little spot over here. But we could bring in local workers, local community. We can bring our community together. I think that would be a really great idea to start with. Just an idea. But this is what I really came for. I would like to raise a few important questions regarding the ongoing negotiations with Mercy Housing. Why does Mercy Housing need 12 more months? The public needs clarity. What specific items need 12 more months to reach an agreement? What are specific considerations that Mercy Housing is having to negotiate? Giving the city currently facing a structural deficit to the economy is uncertain as of now, considering leasing the land for 99 cents for over 99 years is not okay. They can make a profit off of this. That is not okay when we can give this community work. I know I'm cut off.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Vaughn Harrison.
You asked me not to speak about the merits of the project, but tonight when I was thinking about what I was going to say, I realized I was using mushrooms on my pizza, and I wanted to remind myself and everybody why we're building this housing and why you all need to try to expedite the senior and retired farm worker housing.
Thank you, Vaughn. Next speaker is Joaquin Jimenez.
Well, finally, after 2 years, I could actually talk about this project. You know, people have actually questioned me, how come I never made a comment, how come I was recused from talking about 555 Kelly? And I had to, because how I work, I was an employee by Alas, and I could not make a comment. And it was actually questioned during that campaign. So this is a project that is about, it's not about Alas, it's not about Mercy. It's about the need for the farm workers that are retiring. One question came up, we don't have retired farm workers. We don't, because they're still working. After 65, after 75, our oldest farm worker just passed last year, 84 years old, he was still working, 84 years old. So this is what this was about. You know, this piece of land right here, owned by the city, is about to develop farm worker housing for seniors, so they can actually retire. They don't go back to Mexico. People say, oh, they go back to Mexico. They don't. They stay here. They continue to work. They get Social Security. Social Security is not enough to live on. They get less than $1,000 a month on Social Security. Some of them get as low as $300 a month on Social Security. That's why they're still working. So we talk about, you know, retired farm workers. They're not retired farm workers because they're still working. Unless, you know, they're very not able to work at all. So think about it when we talk about this project. And by the way, Mercy Housing has a project, and only 20% of the people that move there, 30%, is because of the type of funding that they receive. It was not because of anything else. So they receive a funding that they get, you know, federal funding that opens up the door to everybody in the county. Okay? So we want to get the funding for the city of Half Moon Bay. I agree with you, but I disagree. Thank you.
Thank you, Joaquin. Next speaker is Jean Knight. Is Jean Knight here still? She had to leave? Okay. Next speaker is Rocio Avila.
Hola, buenas noches, miembros del concilio. Mi nombre es Rocio Ávila, miembro del Comité de Viviendas y líder comunitario. Hoy estoy aquí ante ustedes presentando la inquietud de la comunidad acerca de 555 Kelly. Hay muchas preguntas sobre qué ha pasado con el proyecto de 55 Kelly, por qué ha sido tan largo este proceso, sabiendo la ciudad que hay una emergencia de vivienda y conociendo las condiciones en las cuales se vive. Es el motivo por el cual ¿Cuál es el motivo por el cual se ha pospuesto tanto tiempo? La comunidad campesina necesita el apoyo de los servicios que se ofrecerán en este centro de recursos, ya que muchas personas necesitan mucha ayuda por la falta del idioma, de llenar cualquier papel o buscar ayuda médica que se necesitan. Esto sería un apoyo incondicional, tanto físico y mentalmente, para las familias que viven aquí. Pedimos al Consejo que tomen en cuenta las necesidades de estas personas que no quieren hacer ningún daño a nadie, sino simplemente contar con una vivienda digna y tener los recursos necesarios para poder vivir tranquilos en medio de toda esta tempestad que viene. Muchas gracias.
Gracias. Yes, good evening, members of the council. My name is Rocio Avila, and I'm a member of the Committee for Housing and also a community leader. And I'm here with you folks because I'm presenting an issue regarding 555 Kelly. There's lots of questions regarding what's happened with the project of 555 Kelly. Why has it taken so long? Why has this process taken so long? Knowing that the city that we're in is in an emergency situation with housing, knowing that the conditions that people are living in, and this is the motive of why this has taken so long. The community, agricultural community, needs this type of support, of these services that will be offered with this resource center. Now that a lot of people needs a lot of support because there's a language barrier, they have to fill out forms, look for medical help that they need. This would be the type of support, unconditional, and also not only for one's physical being, but mental also for the families that live here. We ask the council here to, take this into consideration, the necessity of what these persons have, the needs that they have, and that they don't want to, create any harm here. It's just simply just to count on a dignified housing, and to have the necessary resources to live peacefully in the middle of this situation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Roseanne. Nels DeLander is, oh, there you go. Thanks.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council members, and City staff. My name is Nels DeLander, and I'm a representative of Carver's Local 217 here in San Mateo County. The project at 555 Kelly is a good-sized development and has the potential to change the lives for those who live here in the community of Half Moon Bay, especially for the farm workers that are the backbone of this country. But let's not forget about the men and women who build this project. This development needs to be built by a responsible general contractor. However, responsible general contractors that pay area standard wages, healthcare benefits, and promote state-approved apprenticeship programs should be used for this project like this. The men and women who will build this project should be paid a living wage. With inflation going up and housing prices not going down, the workers who will build this project need to be paid enough to take care of themselves and their families. Having trained apprentices on this project from state-accredited programs is a must as well. You want the workforce to be trained so the tasks being performed is safe and they can be professionally done. It is also important for the construction workers to have adequate health care. Responsible general contracts make sure not only the worker has health care, but the families as well. They provide it so they don't have to in more tax dollars. Let's get this built by a responsible general contractor who cares for the workers. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Nels. Bill Hevlin or Hevelin?
Dear esteemed City Council members, my name is Bill Hevlin, one of the principal lay leaders of the Unitarian Universalist Coastside community centered here in Half Moon Bay, and also a member of Coastside Faith in Action. As you know, all of the Coastside needs more housing that's affordable. Lots. Before you is authorization for an exclusive negotiations agreement with Mercy Housing to support the proposed development at 555 Kelly. It's all about affordable housing. At your level, in your role, this is what shovel-ready projects look like. This is a shovel-ready project for affordable housing, and I request your continued support by authorizing this ENA. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you. Next speaker is Shauna Pickett-Gordon.
Honorable council members, thank you for your diligent, compassionate work over the past several years as you've addressed the long-standing lack of affordable housing for our most vulnerable residents, especially our farm workers. For 34 years in Montero, I've watched as adequate, dignified housing became scarcer and less possible for people without high-tech incomes. Market price apartments cost at least 3 times what most essential workers can afford. If you were a senior farm worker who had lived barely sheltered on a farm in the field, what a change would a safe, comfortable, private apartment in town be, close to the services you need in order to interface with the other services, medical and so forth, that you need. Shopping nearby, next to your community, within walking distance of most of what you need. That would also make a statement about us, that we respect the hard work of those who have put food on our tables, even if they can't earn as much as we have. I support farm workers is a lovely thing to go around saying. Actually providing affordable housing would prove it. We have come so far on 555 Kelly. Please tonight approve the ENA so that the land lease and affordable housing covenant negotiations can take place. This is the right step at the right time. Thank you.
Thank you, Shauna. Next speaker, Joanne Rakoski.
Good evening, good late evening. My name is Joanne Rakoski. I'm a member of the Unitarian Universalist Coastside community and also Coastside Faith in Action, which is a group of Coastsiders with many different faith traditions who are united by the value that every family deserves a safe, secure home. So I'm here tonight to ask the City Council to approve the ENA that will give Mercy Housing the evidence of site control needed in order to maintain and secure funding for the senior farm worker housing at 555 Kelly, while the parameters of a ground lease with the city are being established. This week is the 2nd anniversary of the shooting tragedy that shocked our entire community and exposed the deplorable conditions in which many farm workers live. These farm workers worked throughout the pandemic, and many continue to work to provide us with the local produce we so enjoy. I can think of no better way to memorialize the farm workers who died than to provide them with safe and comfortable housing. I urge approval of the ENA. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Joanne. Next speaker is Nancy Fontana.
Thank you. I wasn't going to speak tonight, but then a concern came up. I'm not really taking a position on this action, but I do have a concern that I just want to be sure that the city's not doing anything that would negate the public's ability to bring forth a petition if they want to. There's two types of action, administrative and, I don't know, what is it? I can't keep them straight, legislative, I think. And one is petitionable and one is not. So I don't know if this authorizing a city manager to do this would somehow change the players and negate that possibility, because I don't think the public should lose that right. It's not addressed in the staff report, possibly because it's not possible. I don't know. So I'm against this if it negates that. Otherwise, I don't have a problem because the project's been approved. One more thing, and this is related, I didn't think it was, but it was, Kelly was mentioned when they talked about the ad hoc committee. I'm really disappointed that Deborah Reddock is not on it. It doesn't mean I think she should replace anybody, but I was impressed with her attention to detail and her knowledge, and I think I wish she was on the committee. Thank you. I'm hoping you can clarify that for me. Thanks.
Thank you, Nancy. Our next speaker is Lily Ray.
Thank you. I'm Lily Ray. I am the current president of the ALAS board. And we have been working in partnership with Mercy and ALAS, along with the city staff, to make 555 Kelly a reality. And there's a lot of work that has been done. There's a lot of changes, a lot of revisions to try to make sure that it meets the needs of many. And I urge you to keep on with these negotiations and with what Mercy is bringing to the table, because the ENA means that we get to continue to pursue this, which of course I believe is the right thing to do in this greater community. But with continuing with the ENA will allow us to continue with this effort. The Planning Commission approved it. The previous board then approved that. So let's just keep going. Thank you.
Thank you, Lily. Next speaker is Sandy Vella.
Hello there. My name's Sandy Vella. Thanks for this opportunity. I have a couple points that I'd like to point out. I think the city council needs a negotiating team. At work, we don't do anything with one person. We have a team because, you have to be aware of what's happening within the contract and just what's being said in the room. So great, we have a city manager. I think we ought to add staff to that, whoever is appropriate. We need to understand exactly what Mercy will be providing and have that written in the contract. Contract to me is kind of blurry. Also, in the exclusive negotiating contract, section 1.1, page 3, II, there's a remediation of adverse, I think it's adverse issues. They should be listed in the contract. We have adverse conditions, they should be listed. We have parking issues, we've got traffic issues, we've got the pork chop issue, we've got Safeway walkway access issues. All those should be listed on what we're going to work on. Otherwise, it's blurry. confidentiality is blurry. That one's really concerning because it's like, oh, we should have a confidential agreement on, what's confidential, spell that in the contract, and not decide later, hey, this is going to be confidential, and decide later. It's got to be written down somewhere, not a side room deal. Everything's got to be transparent so everybody knows what's happening in the public. And I'd ask for a 30-day window to actually reread the contract, update it, and make sure it's secure and not just sign it as is. I don't think it's ready. Thank you.
Thank you, Sandy. We have some folks coming in from online here. First person, is that a hand raise? Is Ken Chan.
Good evening, Half Moon Bay City Council members. My name is Ken Chan, and I'm the Senior Organizer with the Housing Leadership Council of San Mateo County. We work with communities and their leaders to produce and preserve quality affordable homes. I'd first like to extend our appreciation to staff for their hard work on this item's report and presentation tonight. On behalf of HLC, and as stated in our letter, I'd like to reiterate our support of the 555 Kelly Avenue proposal by Mercy Housing, a nonprofit organization with decades of expertise in affordable senior housing here in the Bay Area, and with a notable track record in Half Moon Bay, managing the coastside senior community at 925 Main Street. I'd also like to highlight that when leaders like yourself make better housing policies and decisions, the housing system operates better, and we don't leave the survival of so many people to chance or to luck. Our systems should help us plan for and provide the critical things that our community members actually need to live, work, and to thrive in Half Moon Bay. The 555 Kelly proposal can be a part of those plans, bringing 40 new affordable homes to some of your most vulnerable senior and retired farm worker community members, but only if you help get it across the finish line by securing both a exclusive negotiating agreement and a ground lease with Mercy Housing. You'll be making one of the smartest investments in your community ever. How you choose to respond in this moment matters. Not only will you help make Half Moon Bay an even more livable and welcoming place, but you also have the chance to make a positive, historic impact on your community. We encourage you to seize this opportunity. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Ken. Next speaker is Dan Haggerty.
Good evening, everyone. Can you hear me? Hello?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. Thank you very much for allowing me to make a comment here. I just wanted to say that I strongly believe that moving forward, with all this regard, there should be 100% transparency for your constituents. There's still a lot of unanswered questions regarding this project that the community, wants answers on. I also want to remind you that 10% of the Half Moon Bay voters and a broad level of other coastside residents have showed concern regarding all of the impacts that this project will create for everyone, including the visitors. In addition, I want to add that there's many other communities in California that are concerned with similar projects with similar broad impacts to their communities. And there's still a lot of unanswered questions regarding the RENA numbers provided by Department of Housing California. And as far as I know, still, these questions remain unanswered. That's all. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dan. Next speaker is Sue Holland.
Good evening, honorable council members. My name is Sue Holland. I am a resident of Half Moon Bay. I'm the pastor of Coastside Lutheran Church, and I'm a member of Coastside Faith in Action. So first I want to thank you for all the steps that you've taken toward addressing the housing crisis in Half Moon Bay, especially the situation that's faced by our most vulnerable community members, the senior farm workers. And as was pointed out by Joanne, you know, we're coming up on the 2-year anniversary of the shooting, and the situation that our farm workers deal with was brought into the spotlight by that horrible incident. So I'm speaking to you tonight to encourage you to move forward with the next step of making 555 Kelly a dream come true, and to vote to approve the ENA. The ENA will provide Mercy Housing in the city with 12 months of time, 12 months that are needed to work out the affordable housing property disposition agreement and the terms of the ground lease. And it's also 12 months that they need to work out the funding. As Mr. Jimenez pointed out, that will allow us to get funding that will let us use the housing and the resource center for the farm workers in Half Moon Bay who are our neighbors. Everyone in our community needs to have a safe and a decent place to call home in order for them to live and to thrive, and also for our community as a whole to thrive as well. So thank you for your continued commitment to our most vulnerable residents and all of our residents. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker is Jordan Grimes.
Good evening, Council, Honorable Mayor. My name is Jordan Grimes. I'm a lifelong resident of San Mateo County and a lead member of grassroots housing advocacy group Peninsula for Everyone. I'll keep this short and sweet tonight. I just want to urge you on behalf of our Coastside members to authorize a new ENA this evening and keep the project on its current trajectory. I struggle to think of a better use of public funds anywhere in the county, maybe in the state, than this project, given the immense support and fundamental community need for affordable housing for senior farm workers. Given recent history, knowing the conditions community members are living in, knowing their struggles and their suffering, we urge you to stay the course and ensure the project moves forward in a timely manner. Inaction tonight would create more problems than it would solve. 555 Kelly will be a transformative project built by and for the community that all can be proud of. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Jordan. We have one more speaker, Patricia Stevenson.
Good evening, council members. This should be pretty short. My question is, if they don't obtain funding after this year, what happens with this project? And this is where my bigger concern with our tax dollars is, more so than our ball field. You know, we have Stone Pine now, we have 555, Moon Ridge, Main Street. Seems to only help one demographic. I'm wondering what's your plan for the other low-income people in this community? There's a lot of them. A lot of our children can't afford to live here anymore. So that's really, and I've read some things where some of this low-income housing, only a certain percentage will be low income, and after a certain period of time, whether it be 5, 10 years, it just turns into market value. So I don't really see where that would be helpful if that were to happen with this project. I think if it's low income housing, it should remain that way like forever. But I am curious where the other $35 million is supposed to come from. And yeah, and what happens if they don't obtain their funding? What goes on with this project? That's about it. Thank you.
Thank you, Patricia. One more speaker, I think, Noreen Cooper Hevlin.
Thank you. I've been here. I definitely want to speak. Waited all this time. So thank you so much. Dear esteemed city council members, my name is Noreen Cooper Hevlin, and I'm speaking on behalf of the Coastside Faith in Action and our local Unitarian Universalist Church in Half Moon Bay. Now, you know that Martin Luther King's birthday was yesterday, right? And he faced his own challenges in life, and he always followed his conscience, and he did the right thing. And I want to say that you have done the right thing. And as King said in one of his speeches, on some positions, cowardice asks, is it safe? Expedience asks, is it politic? Vanity asks, is it popular? But conscience asks, is it right? And I want to congratulate all of you for doing the right thing with 555 Kelly. So let's keep the project going. This is just one next small step to extend the exclusive negotiations agreement between Mercy Housing and the city of Half Moon Bay. And thank you, Mercy Housing, for hanging in there with us. I hope we haven't been the worst as far as all the delays. Thank God. So, because supporting affordable housing for farm workers is the right thing to do. Supporting affordable housing for seniors is the right thing to do. And 555 Kelly is all of these. So thank you for your support.
Thank you, Noreen. I stand corrected. We did have one more speaker online. Tony Serrano, if you're still there, you're up.
Hello, can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Thank you. I'm here tonight to voice my strong support for the exclusive negotiation agreement, the ENA, between the city of Half Moon Bay, Mercy Housing, and Ayudando Latinos a Soñar Alas for the development of affordable housing at 555 Kelly Avenue. This agreement is an important milestone, so let's be clear. It cannot become just another document that collects dust while our senior farm workers continue to struggle. We've spent years talking about the housing crisis, about the injustice faced by those who have worked tirelessly in our fields, and about the need for meaningful action. 2 years ago, we were shaken by the tragedy that forced us to confront the reality of their living conditions. We said, never again. Now's the time to prove we mean it. This ENA is a commitment, but commitments mean nothing without decisive action. Mercy Housing and Alas are the right partners for this project. They understand the needs of our farm worker community, and they have the experience to deliver results. But the truth is, even the best partners can only move as fast as the city allows. It's up to the city council to ensure that this process moves forward without any unnecessary delays, obstacles, or bureaucratic slowdowns. We cannot afford to get caught up in red tape while people continue to live in substandard conditions. Yes, concerns have been raised about traffic, parking, and the building scale. But let's be honest, those concerns pale in comparison to the reality of our farm workers living in overcrowded, unsafe, and inhumane housing conditions. If we're truly committed to being a community that values equity and inclusion, then it's time to put those values into action. Let's stop making excuses and start making progress. I am urging the City Council to push this project forward with urgency. No more delays, no more unnecessary hurdles. Our farm workers have waited long enough. We have the resources, we have the plan, and now we need the will to get it done. Half Moon Bay has a chance to lead by example, to show that we are a city that stands by our promises and takes care of the people who have taken care of us. Let's not waste this opportunity. Move this project forward and move it forward now. Thank you.
Thank you, Tony. I think that's it. Okay. Council. What are you thinking?
I heard a couple of things that I just would like to bring up and maybe clarifications. Excuse me. First off, this E&A is between the city and Mercy, correct? Which then the E&A allows the city to continue to negotiate the Affordable Housing and Property Disposition Agreement, otherwise known as AHPDA, which is currently being negotiated, correct? And if that's what this E&A is for, just to allow us to get to an agreement, correct? And the only other thing I would throw out, I've heard, periods of time, I noticed in the agreement, there's built-in 2 30-day extensions that are allowed. If 6 months is something we should consider with these 2 30 days, which then would be 8, or is it something 12 months we absolutely have to have? I just want to throw out whether we could make this work with 6 and the 2 30-day extensions that are built in. That's all I have.
The only questions I have, I just want to address some of the things that the speakers, and I appreciate all the speakers that come out and bring forward things. It's not really related, but I wanted clarity. Patricia brought up, that you can sell the unit after 5 or 10 years. I'm not sure that's really the case. And then she brought up the, what else was it? Question if, and this was my question too at one point. After 1 year, what happens after that, after the 12 months? Then do we do another, just the same kind of a contract again and see where we're going? That was actually one of my questions also. But then Patricia brought up 5-10 years, the houses can be sold at market rate. I don't think that's the case, but I'd like for people out there in the public to know how that whole process works. But I don't want to spend a bunch of time because it's getting late. But yeah, I just want to dab into that real quick.
Did staff want to respond to that?
Yeah, I'd be happy to take a couple of those. I'll just take them in order. I know the request is for a 12-month timeline. We could potentially have Mercy staff come up and just describe why the request is for 12. But I'll just really quickly, the timeline for this development as far as the units would not be able to be sold, it would be the term on most affordable housing developments, especially rental, is typically a minimum of 55 years. So it would need to be dedicated, affordable, 55 years. The reason for that is typically that's standard lifespan for before needing potentially general renovations on a building and so forth. That being said, part of state funding is potential 99-year ground lease, which would also extend the affordability as well. So most affordable housing agreements look at the lifespan of the property as well as in due health of the building, essentially, that it would be a usable space and not need additional renovations. Typically, a developer will need to go out for additional funding for potential renovations, which could secure additional covenants, affordable housing covenants, so it could extend that clock as well. So there wouldn't be necessarily a concern on any sales in the near term by any means. And then the timeline for the E&A was just I don't know if I'm answering this appropriately, so please chime in if I'm not landing in the right space here, but the E&A term is really meant to, the goal is to reach an agreement on the affordable housing and property disposition agreement within that term. That is the goal. The 30-day, in the last E&A, we actually had 2 90-day extension periods, with the goal for this being to reach agreement within 12 months. We've decreased that to 2 30-day extensions as needed. So the goal is truly to reach agreement with Mercy Housing on the AHPDA within that term, not to have an additional ENA.
Can you please explain the acronym AHDBA?
Sorry, I was just using shorthand. So it's Affordable Housing and Property Disposition Agreement.
Did you have any comment?
I just don't like acronyms.
Okay.
Actually, what it really is a lease agreement, correct?
So the included in there would be the terms of the ground lease. It wouldn't be physically signed just yet, and that happens closer to construction, but the terms of such would be negotiated as part of that. It would be an addendum to that agreement. Typically, there's multiple attachments to that agreement. Right, and that will secure the affordability covenants that were referenced in regards to it remaining affordable for a specific term, no less than 55 years.
Vice Mayor Reddick. Oh, Jim.
So a lot of people have been bringing up that are for and against the project, and I don't want to use those words, but you got both sides, and both sides are, I'm listening. You get this feeling like it's taking too long. In this whole process that you've seen in a project this big in this town, and it's gone through approval through Planning Commission, and it's gone through all the things that we have to do. We didn't have to do CEQA because it's SB 35 or SB 423, right? Or it falls into super or high density, right? But the time frame, let's just focus on the time frame. Has it been taking too long, or is this about the normal rate? Because I'm hearing it on both sides.
Sure. One of my first meetings with the city, I started just under 3 years ago. One of my first meetings on this project was to outline what the expected development timeline would be, and what we outlined was 6 to 7 years during that meeting. So we're within that range. It often comes down to funding with these applications, to state and county funding sources that can extend the timeline for a project.
So explain what that time frame represents.
Sure. Should like break it down. Is that what you're requesting? Okay.
Basically to construction, complete construction.
Sure. Yeah, so typically pre-development activities is what's happening prior to entitlements. So that is a 2 to 3 year process. That includes public outreach, some of the dates that I've listed, and we have many of these on our website as well, just for the public to look at. And then you have 2 to 3 years of funding, and then 2 to 3 years of construction if you were to break it up into 3 sections. And 6 to 7 years is a good case for affordable housing development. And I know we can ask Mercy on what it is currently on most of their projects, but that is my understanding of close to what it typically is.
So in general, what I'm getting is the city's not really running slow. It's really, the applicant is actually asking for more time. So I just want to be clear that we're getting feedback it's taking too long, but we're actually, the applicant's asking for more time.
Yes, it's a nuanced answer in regards to we've been in negotiations on affordable housing and property disposition agreement shortly after the city council decision to uphold during the appeals hearing in June of 2024. So we've been in conversations, the city staff, and that's when the ad hoc was formed as well. So those conversations have been ongoing, but I think Mercy and the city had potentially hoped to come to an agreement by this time. We're now running up against funding commitments and requirements from the state on what Mercy's already secured for the project, and not to jeopardize those. That is why an ENA is recommended at this stage, so that they can demonstrate that they are in this active conversation with the city.
I just want to say this is not taking a long time. You know, we've just been wrestling with a
2800 Champs-Élysées Drive, a single-family home, I know 8, 10, 12 years, and it was rejected. And we've been going in great detail over a public restroom at the Chamber of Commerce, right? So there's oversight and accountability, and in the case of one, probably a little foolishness, but this is not taking a long time. This was considered over, what, 5 or 6 meetings between the Planning Commission and City Council. So, you know, we have to get it right. It's a huge project with a lot of impacts, and we have to be accountable not just to the people we are negotiating with, but the entire community. Just wanted to say that. This in no way commits the city to any particular version of a lease agreement. It's only an agreement to continue to talk and to negotiate. It's not referendable, it's not a legislative act, but it is needed to continue to pursue negotiations. So I'm going to vote to approve this tonight. It doesn't commit us beyond that. I just want to point out also that even if we accomplished a lease agreement for this property, it's no guarantee that all the funding will be amassed in a reasonable time within the milestones included in the lease agreement. So this is all a work in progress. And I think it's important to set expectations and to set your hopes in terms of process, but to realize that it's very complex and it's going to take even longer than it's taken so far. But we have to work through it, and we will. So I would move that we adopt a resolution authorizing the city manager to execute an exclusive negotiations agreement between the City of Half Moon Bay and Mercy Housing California to provide 12 months to negotiate an affordable housing and property disposition agreement and the terms of a ground lease for a senior affordable housing development at 555 Kelly Avenue.
I'll second.
Can we have a roll call?
Councilmember Penrose?
Yes.
Councilmember Johnson?
Yes.
Councilmember Nagengast?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Reddick?
Yes.
Mayor Brownstone?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you, staff, for answering our questions. Okay. Only 11, it's only 11. We only have 3 more items. How's everyone feeling? Do you need a 5-minute break? You ready to keep going? I'll go with whatever staff
Let's
needs.
just do it.
Let's do it.
Why don't we move some of the more less important stuff up, like the planning commission appointments, get that out of the way, because the sheriff's thing might take a while.
That's true. I suggest we move up some of the items first before we do the sheriffs. I don't know.
Let's just move up.
I don't care. Which one do you want to move up?
Let's move up the.
Okay, yeah, well, you know, you need a break? No, oh, okay.
Whatever order we want to go in, so I can get the right staff.
Give the man his one.
I'm already chewing on you guys.
See, we know. was just being
Can I see
polite.
the agenda real quick?
Yeah.
Let's just get these two out of the way real fast.
So we're just going to take things a little out of order, just because they'll be quick. So we're going to skip to 3D, appointments to city commissions, that council members Gaston Johnson were making appointments to the Planning and Parks and Rec Commission. Do we need a staff report on this, or do we need a staff report, or we can just go right to the?
I think we can just jump straight into it.
Yeah, great, that's right.
Yeah.
I think. Okay. Oh, you.
Is that who that is? Well, that's why I called it up.
Patrick, do you want to start with your appointments to both? Should we go with each commission first, or just, yeah, you can tell us both. Yeah, give us all your
Dive in.
appointments, recommendations.
So I've done a lot of, I don't want to sit there on the mic too long, but I did do a lot of interviewing with some people. I've made some phone calls with certain people that have been on council before, on planning commission before, and talked to Hazel, and Hazel said that she was going to resign, and then she wasn't going to resign, and then so it was back and forth.
Could you turn on your mic?
Oh, so Hazel was going to resign, and at the point where I was running because of the conflict with Paul, and then so I went interviewing about 5 people, and I interviewed Jim Reams, who's in the back here. He works as a surveyor for San Francisco, and we clicked right away, and I felt really comfortable out of all the interviews, so that would be my pick for Planning Commission. Right. Then I went to Rick Hernandez's house and interviewed his wife, Hillary, and I felt very comfortable with that. There was some inputs that people gave me that they would like to see, and I brought that forward to Hillary, that to work a little bit more with the youth, because she's more active with the high school and the volleyball, so I actually brought that forward, because I wanted somebody that was rooted and invested and already knew, and but I also wanted to put some input that I've heard from other people that, you know, that they may not be driving into this category because their kids are older, so that, you know, more of an older. So I asked her to look into, go back to your roots of where you started, you know, Hatch and stuff like that, and make sure that you include those kids in that age group. So those are my 2 picks there.
What's Hillary's last name? Just
okay. If I had it, it's in here.
Stamper.
Yeah, sorry.
Okay, great.
I'm getting tired.
Great. Thanks, Patrick. Paul.
Thank you. I looked at a lot of the submittals that we had, willing to serve, which I think is fantastic, that people are willing to serve. There is across different, you know, you had a variety of folks that did submit willing to serve, and I had conversations with everyone but one. We just never touched base, and I couldn't get a hold of her, nor did I get a return back. But based on my conversations, I'm comfortable with having David Gorn still stay in the Planning Commission, and then also in the Recreation or Parks and Recreation, Tito Hernandez, which he's currently on there, brings a younger perspective in there, not just, he's not a youth person, but he's a local, went to Half Moon Bay High, as a local person, and talking also with the commissioners on Rec and Park, they work well together. So I'm comfortable with having Tito on the Park and Rec Commission. And I didn't know, the other thing is that pedestrian bicycle, you know, there was a note in the report that we could move forward with something, so I did talk to the person on there. Who was that? He submitted James Carniglia, but he's with Coastside Bikes, which there's a couple other members in the community that are part of Coastside Bikes, and I talked to them about James, and they were very supportive. This is a bicyclist. There are pedestrians on this committee now. This is the actual person that's with Coastside on Bikes, that they work with the committee on that. So if the council wanted also to act on that empty role, or, if you wanted to, leave it open a little longer and see if you could get somebody else. But I'm comfortable, talking over with James, to just go ahead and support him for that role if council wanted to act on that position, that opening too.
Good work.
Sounds good. Great.
Can I ask you a question, Paul? Was that the gentleman that lives in Cupertino, works for Apple? Was that the one?
Yeah, I don't think he works in Cupertino. I think he works at Apple.
I read that one. I feel comfortable with that. Very much so. I agree. Totally agree.
It's not agendized, so I don't think we can do it. Can we?
Wait, we'll get an
This item is agendized for appointments to Planning Commission and Parks and Rec Commission.
Okay.
We could bring back an item for the
okay.
other committee.
Up at the next meeting.
Just for clarity, the only reason I think we're bringing it up is because it was in the packet of, and I was like, wow, that's a good candidate.
Yeah.
So I agree with, if we can bring it back, that'd be great.
Sounds good. Any other questions or? Nope. Good to go? Someone like to make a,
I move that we accept the recommendations of Councilmember Nagengast and Councilmember Johnson on their appointees to the Planning Commission and Parks and Recs.
Second.
roll call?
Councilmember Penrose?
Yes.
Councilmember Johnson?
Yes.
Councilmember Nagengast?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Reddick?
Yes.
And Mayor Brownstone?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, our next item, transfer of the PG&E Rule 28 credits to San Mateo County. Here we go. Thanks, Miles.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council and public. So I don't have a PowerPoint presentation for this, and I'll keep it pretty brief. The Rule 20A, which is a tariff program established by the California Public Utilities Commission, is actually sunsetting. And the allocations that each jurisdiction gets based on ratepayers, it's an accumulation over time of these undergrounding credit dollars. And the city of Half Moon Bay has historically held those tariffs and let them accumulate over time until the last large project, which was the Half Moon Bay Library, that had a pretty significant undergrounding component as part of that project. We used up almost the majority of our credits. We have just shy, a little bit under 200,000 in credits currently in our coffers, accordance to the rules of PG&E and the California Public Utilities Commission. And right now, because $200,000 is a very small amount for this type of project. If we had a project that we were going to underground that had a little bit more funding towards it or other funding source, we could have utilized these funds. But given where we are in the sunsetting timeframe and the fact that we will not accrue any more credits, we're kind of stuck at 199,000. And in the past, there was an opportunity for these credits to be sold at a discount or purchased within different communities. The sunsetting of the program has disallowed any of those transactions. So essentially, we have two choices currently because we don't have a project that would meet the definition for Rule 28 at this point in time. We have two options. We either can transfer it to the county that we reside in, which is San Mateo County, which is what's being proposed. The other option is we do nothing, and then the PG&E can utilize those credits and transfer it to any project within their service area. And so with the Middlefield Road project, the county is short about 1.2 million of credits for Rule 28 funding. They had recently, I think May of last year, they received a significant amount from Atherton, who had some credits and I guess like us did not have an active project to utilize it towards. And so they've reached out to us, and at the staff level, we thought that it was appropriate. So that's what we brought before you tonight is an action to allow the city manager to authorize the transfer of that credit to San Mateo County for their Middlefield Road project, which serves an underserved community population. And the other benefit is that the tariff funds that we had accumulated still stays at least within the county itself and isn't at the mercy of PG&E to reallocate where they choose. So that's the end of my presentation and happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for Maz?
I move that we authorize the city manager to transfer its Rule 20A work credits to the County of San Mateo for the completion of the Middlefield Road Improvement Project.
Second. Roll call.
Councilmember Penrose?
Yes.
Councilmember Johnson?
Yes.
Councilmember Nagengast?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Reddick?
Yes.
Yes.
And Mayor Brownstone.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay. Our last item, agendized item for the evening, is regarding our agreement for law enforcement services with the County of San Mateo Sheriff's Office, Amendment 17.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I don't have any slides. I'll just give a brief overview and open it up for discussion. As you all know, back in 2011, the city dissolved its longstanding police department due to financial concerns and contracted with the sheriff following our RFP to provide law enforcement services to the city at a reduced cost over what it cost the city at that time. And over the years, there's been incremental increases and several amendments. We are actually in the final term of that original agreement. And so beyond tonight, we're going to be needing to have discussions about how we approach the future of law enforcement in Half Moon Bay, whether it's a continued contract with the sheriff's office, looking for other agencies to provide it, or exploring going in-house again with our own police services. And I think there's a lot of work and analysis that would go into that decision. For tonight, we are simply fulfilling a requirement of the existing agreement, which the agreement is by law, it's in the government code, a cost recovery contract, which means whatever it costs the county to provide these services, we need to pay those costs. And so the way our contract is built, even though the term is in place, every year we have to come forward with an amendment that captures the current scope of work and the cost of services estimated for that year. Any additional cost we would be on the hook for, and any overage we would get reimbursed for at the end of each year. And that is traditionally what happens. It's a very conservative estimate, and we end up coming in under cost and receiving a refund. This is Amendment 17. It is for the current fiscal year that we're in, fiscal year 2024-25. It represents a 5.4% increase over last year's cost of services, and that is an estimated cost of $5.475 million. I'll just a couple of things. The level of service that we receive from the sheriff's office is their minimum level of service that they provide. Looking through some history, it's the exact same staffing model that we had when we had our own police department. Again, it's a conservative estimate and will likely result in a small refund at the end of the fiscal year. Normally, we would bring this forward during the budget process. The numbers were brought forward during the budget process, but the hope was we might be able to negotiate some sort of a tweak to the cost, which is something staff worked with the sheriff's office and the county executive's office on for several months. Ultimately, this is the cost. It's been compared with other cities, and it's based on the same rates they charge others. And we held off on bringing this forward due to some of the issues that are going on at the sheriff's office, obviously very public issues. But we feel like we need to get this taken care of so that we can pay the fine men and women that serve our community and get up to speed on that. I will share that despite the challenges that have gone on at the sheriff's office and the fact that we have not executed this amendment, there's been no change in service levels, and we still have a very dedicated captain and sergeants and deputies that serve our community, along with the other civilian staff that are part of the operations here. I have a lot of data in front of me. If you have questions, I know that there's been some questions from the community, and I'm happy to address those if you so feel to tonight. With that, I'll turn the time back over to you.
Any clarifying questions from council?
Just one, and one that was raised in a letter from a citizen relating to does Half Moon Bay in any way, shape, or form end up subsidizing public safety in the unincorporated coast side?
Yeah, I think that's a fair question, especially given the fact that the sheriff's office provides services up and down the coast side. We are part of what's called the Coast Side Bureau. So we have a captain here, Captain Richard Chichov, and he is our chief of police services, and we pay for essentially 75% of his salary and his time. The other quarter of his time is spent overseeing the operations of the Moss Beach substation. There's also a substation down in La Honda, and those fall under his bureau as well. Along with that, there are some other shared services around CSO, a community services officer. They do traffic control and things like that. And obviously, they operate pretty fluidly up and down the coast, providing what's called mutual aid. So if there's a big incident in Half Moon Bay and the number of officers that we have allocated are not enough to either address that issue or address that issue and still respond to other calls going on in Half Moon Bay, officers from other parts of the coast side will come and provide coverage, and that works both directions. Historically, this has been a question that's come up, and it's not something we dig into every single fiscal year, but they have shown in the past the data that shows that typically we receive more mutual aid than other parts of the coast, which could be construed as we actually being subsidized a little bit by the operations on the mid-coast. But again, there's a fairness and there's a benefit to having these officers kind of work fluidly on the coast. Certainly going forward, if we want to pursue another contract with the sheriff, this is an issue that I think we need to have them redocument and be really transparent about how those operations happen so that the coast side can feel comfortable that we're not subsidizing other operations here.
Yeah, we have to start working on the next agreement soon. So I think we want to dig down into the data just to understand it better, see if there are questions that are unanswered, and just be able to communicate more clearly to the public what we're paying, what we're getting, what others are paying for the same services, the other contract cities, for instance. There's some suggestion that maybe Half Moon Bay is, getting a worse deal than cities like San Carlos and Millbrae, and et cetera, et cetera. So I think we need to have our Public Safety Committee and our Finance Committee, take a look at this going forward. I did notice in the agreement that it calls for a couple of different regular reports on the part of the sheriff's office about what's happening, and I don't recall seeing them. So I want to make sure that if there are reports that are required in there, that we actually get them and follow up on that. But other than that, I think we need to adopt this tonight.
I'd also like to see us look again at the cost of maintaining our own force. Not that I am recommending that, but I think for the public to understand that this is cost saving. I think we need to show that.
Absolutely, and it's something at the staff level we do every couple of years just as kind of a gut check. Interestingly enough, I did a little bit of extra research before tonight, and the cost of services for police services here in Half Moon Bay, before we switched over to the sheriff's office, it looks like it peaked in 2008 and 2009 at $4.2 million. That was reduced by about 44% when it went to the sheriff's office, and we didn't eclipse that number again until last fiscal year. So you think of just normal inflation, if it peaked in 2008 and 2009, what we would be paying today if we were continuing to provide our own police services. And I think a big part of that is the pension costs of public safety, probably significantly higher than what we're paying already. But it is always a great exercise to look at other cities similar to us that have their own police services, understand what they're paying, and also what do they get if by keeping it in-house, and what are the benefits of keeping it in-house, so that we're really being transparent with the community about why we choose to go one direction or another and what we're giving up in either situation. So,
And that number,
it's the largest line item in our budget. We pay more for this than anything else.
I'll just say that number you gave was from 2008 dollars. So then we'd have to figure out, what does that look like? 16 years later, what is that number to make a fair comparison? So, yeah, great.
I also think we might want to consider actually additional police services. You know, there's been a call for, more sheriff activity around, parking on streets, campers parking on streets, et cetera. And that requires some active enforcement because people are gaming the system, they're parking, going away for 8 hours, coming back, parking again. So there may be other sorts of enforcement activities that we'd like to spend some money on, some additional services. We might want to just talk about that too.
Bonfires.
But remember, everything
right,
comes
though.
with a cost. I
Yeah.
think you're exactly right, but I think we be transparent. Yeah, if we want this, here's the cost.
Right.
I'm not saying it's a straight line cafeteria plan, this will cost you, but,
Right.
if you ask for it, it will. And I think absolutely that should be presentable. And I think everything you and Councilmember Penrose have said, I agree totally. I think we have our work cut out for us for this agreement coming up, but July 1st, right? So actually the work probably starts now.
Yeah.
Where we have to put something together and make sure the community understands what this is and what it isn't. I agree.
What do you want? What are you willing to pay for it?
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
I spent a good hour prior to the campaign. I went to high school with Chichoff, Richie, we used to call him Ricky. And he invited me in and we had a nice discussion. But he kind of showed me how we were paying for 3, but we had 4, I'm just generalizing. And we were getting kind of a discount, if you would. And then ironically, I work on Rebecca, I think her name's Rebecca, the previous chief, or I work on her mom's car. So I called her mom and got her number and she talked to her and she said the same thing. But I just wanted to dig deeper because that's when I first met Matthew. And I was like, how could that be, this whole thing? It is what it is, and there is an increase. But I think because we passed Measure R, which was for the increase of tax, it was a Measure R, I think it was, right? It clearly states we need more money to have services. But the citizens deserve the fact of us doing due diligence of making sure that we're getting adequate services and why it's costing, and to try to be as transparent as possible, and also give option B, like we were talking about, what Councilmember Penrose said. I think we should, this is what this would cost, we did this before, and the numbers came out quick, just to be transparent and go, this is why we're going the way we're going. But at the same time, with all the commotion that's going on now, we all know it, we all reading it, let it settle, let the dust settle, but I think we should negotiate a little bit and then make sure that we're paying our fair share and not paying somebody else's down that way, and I won't go into details there, but we are paying our fair share, and we need to make sure that we're having adequate services.
Also, sometimes the next door, which I do read, always interesting reading, and a lot of people say, oh God, there's more crime now, but Sheriff's presented a pretty solid report that actually most crime was down in reality. It wasn't up. And there's a lot of things we don't always, a lot of things you could take for granted, things that aren't happening. They've squashed a lot of gang activity in the past very quickly because, they can look at it across, the whole county. And they have resources that I think are great. And now we've provided them with more resources with the license plate cameras. So, I just think it's good to combine, those are metrics, how successful, are they at fighting crime and answering calls and all that. And we have a lot of good metrics around that, so we ought to share that whether or not we are getting what we're paying for. So, great. Well then, motion, or I'll make the motion. I'll move that we adopt a resolution authorizing the city manager to execute Amendment 17 to the agreements for law enforcement services between the county of San Mateo and the city of Half Moon Bay under the new rates and payments schedule.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Councilmember Penrose?
Yes.
Councilmember Johnson?
Yes.
Councilmember Nagengast?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Reddick,
Yes.
and Mayor Brownstone.
Yes,
Motion carries.
great. Are there any commission or committee updates to be shared? No. Any items for possible agenda items?
Yes.
Yeah, I had one just to reiterate it because we've already asked, but I'd like to bring Caltrans back and discuss what's going on with their 5-mile contract, and also I really want to have that discussion about the pork chops because there was a kind of a change of decisions on their part, and I want to see if we can bring that back. And
I don't know if we can because it went to the Coastal Commission. It was appealed in the Coastal Commission. They sided with Caltrans with some stipulations and how they wanted the project to be. So I don't know if that's something we could do.
Either event, I'd like to bring them back.
Yeah,
so
yeah,
we can
sure.
get a sense of it and what can.
We're just looking for an update from them essentially and a timeline?
Yeah, and revisit those topics, and see if we can make some creative solutions around it. So anyway, Vice Mayor Ruddick has a.
Well, you need a second on bringing back that?
You're right, I need a second. Will anyone second that? Second by Vice Mayor Ruddick. Vice Mayor Ruddick would also like to, as an item.
So there's a perception of the public about the kind of coverage we have at City Hall, who's there, when. And what I would like to do is bring back an item to hear about coverage at City Hall, like work at home schedules and who's available in terms of management, and discuss even like, what do we do on weekends? Like, is there somebody in charge on weekends? But I just want to bring back an item to have the city manager report on what the current state of staffing at City Hall is during the week. And in the case it's needed on the weekend, so.
Second. That's done. Any city council reports?
I just have one, the trash letter, whether we have trash police or not, I'm not, it came out right before Christmas. It was a letter from the city, and it's telling folks, look, you better really separate your stuff correctly or you can be fined up to $500. And I don't think this is meant, oh no, this is a violation, you're going to go after it. But just so the community, I know there's a CR code on the letter itself, but if there's ways that the community can understand if there's a way we can present information to the community or even have our waste hauler provide that information as part of their franchise agreement. Hey, if cheese is stuck to a pizza box, it's still okay to put it in the compost. Or did you burn something in aluminum foil? It's okay still to put it in the recycle bin, because sometimes I have to think, which one does this go in? So I don't think it needs to be an agenda item necessarily, just maybe.
Yeah, we could bring in we've brought in Republic Services
I think it's a good
before
idea.
to discuss and of course ask the $1 million question, does any of that go to?
Yeah, I just know, I've been hearing this a lot, what to do.
I have the same question.
There was a question about the timing of the franchise agreement. So that was executed in 2017 for 10 years. So we've got, 10 years? Yeah, 3 more years. Is that right, Moz? It's a 10-year franchise agreement?
Yeah, that's a pretty common time frame for these franchise agreements. Although they do come back and do updates annually, which we've done in the past, but we're coming up pretty quick. 2025, and so next year we'll be back for that update. But
I'll point out that was Catherine and I's first night of work. That was our first day with the city. Was that 2 a.m. franchise agreement.
Yeah, we can definitely bring that back with more information, and I also agree that maybe some additional outreach and some information as far as how you can handle some of that stuff would make a lot of sense.
All right. Adjourned. Thank you, everybody. Thanks for hanging in. Covered a lot tonight. Thank you.
Thanks for everybody's patience.